Good morning. Morning, everyone. Sorry, tall I get, Mr. McVeigh. And I've got little heels on too. So good morning, Delaware brokers. Thanks for coming out today and welcome to our 2023 Broker Summit. I'm looking forward to a really full agenda. We're going to move kind of quickly this morning. We want to be mindful of your time. And so today we're bringing you together. You're all industry leaders, service providers, policymakers. Part of our mission this year is to refresh some things at DAR. And we're going to be talking about key issues and trends that are affecting the real estate market in Delaware. So our lineup today is really, really good. We have Adam Lopes with Bright MLS. Is Adam here? Yeah. There you are. Good morning. We have Jessica Louts with NAR. She's going to give us a housing update. She's going to talk about some of the home buyer demographics. Owen Tyler from NAR sharing about RPAC and the Realtor Party. Is he here or is he on? Good morning. I haven't made my way over yet. Eugene Young's going to talk about some of the programs and opportunities with the Delaware State Housing Authority. Our very own George Thompson is going to give a DAR legislative update. We have a pretty active assembly right now. And last and certainly not least, we're going to wrap up with Andy Taylor and a regulatory update that's going to include the seller's disclosure real property condition report. So we're looking forward to this being time really well spent for you today. Simon Sinek, everybody knows Simon Sinek, the motivational speaker, the writer. He's referred to as the unshakable optimist. And he says that if we want to feel an undying passion for our work, if we want to feel like we're contributing to something bigger than ourselves, we have to know our why. You know, why do we do things? What motivates us? So my why this year is stewardship, and it's my word for the year. Does anybody have words of the year? Anybody want to share their word of the year? Passion. I like it, Bobby. Mia. Intentional. Those are good words.
Money.
So, money. Let's get right to the point right there. So my word of the year is stewardship. It's my mantra, reminding myself of the stewardship I hold. It serves as a guide to stay focused on my goals and my priorities and helps me make decisions that align with all of them. So stewardship is the ethical responsibility we have to act on behalf of others, to honor the responsibilities of service that we have. In its most simple definition, stewardship is really management, and management is responsibility. So each one of us has been given talents and gifts and passions, desires, resources that are unique to us. And the way in which we use these gifts and resources is a reflection of how we see our stewardship. So you're in this room today too, because you also have a stewardship. When consumers buy and sell real estate, which is often their largest financial asset, they trust a realtor. So for us, this duty of stewardship, it's broader and it's more far-reaching than just a real estate transaction. So the most impactful sentiment I've heard about stewardship came from 2022 NAR President Leslie Ruta Smith, when she said that stewardship reminds us that the day we plant the seed is not the day we reap the harvest. So we're working today for a brighter future. And as brokers, isn't that our job? As broker managers, as supervisors, as leaders, that's our job. We supervise real estate agents. It's more than just a responsibility. It's an opportunity we have to shape their future, to shape the future of sales agents in the industry as a whole. As a broker, we have the power to inspire and motivate our agents to achieve their goals, to provide guidance and support when they face challenges, and to help them develop the skills and knowledge that they need to succeed in this business. By leading with passion and leading with empathy and commitment to excellence, we can build a culture of collaboration, of innovation, of growth that benefits everyone, and that's what we're doing here today by bringing everyone together. So for each agent we supervise, every agent we supervise is a leader in their own right, and by investing in their success, we can help create a brighter future for our entire industry. So as a broker leader in this dynamic and ever-evolving industry, we face many challenges and opportunities, but by working together, sharing our knowledge and expertise, and embracing our innovation, I'm confident we can create this brighter future for the real estate industry and the communities that we serve, and that's our stewardship. So with that, DAR is exercising stewardship by working on a few pretty big goals this year. You guys are looking up there. I didn't know there's something playing over my head. We have a few pretty big goals this year. Our first goal that I'm super excited about is to have multilingual statewide forms. And this has come, I think several of you have asked for that. Our forms committee is going to be working on that. We have, instead of having multilingual agreements of sale, listing agreements, consumer information agreements, or consumer information statements, what we've decided to work on is called guidance documents. So guidance document, it's a companion document. We're going to have a version in English, we're going to have a version in Spanish, and eventually work towards other languages. But that's going to allow you to basically go through the agreement of sale, go through the listing agreement, and paraphrase and use layman's terms, explain the paragraphs. And then we're going to translate that guidance document first to Spanish and then branch out into other languages. This is something I think that our state really needs, and a lot of you brokers have asked for it, and your agents have really asked us for it. Our second initiative, we're going to work on this in the second half of the year after we get through this legislative session, is a mediation program, a statewide mediation program. And we really put our money where our mouth is too. We've sponsored a few trips to NAR's mediation training. We've given some scholarships away for that, or we're recruiting people to apply for the scholarships. So if you have interest in mediating or conflict resolution, please look into that. We have more information on it. Do we have information? Wes will talk about it later when he goes over the website. We have our third initiative. We've already done roadshows. We sort of loosely started calling them roadshows. I said to Wes one day, I was like, hey, you know what? We really need to go visit the counties, and we need to meet people. We need to meet agents and brokers, invite them to come hear about DAR and what DAR does for them as members. So we talked about all of the member benefits, the resources. We talked about the advocacy through public policy and all the work that we do at Legislative Hall. We talked about the forms. So these road shows, they were pretty fun. We went to Sussex County, Kent County, and Newcastle County. Newcastle County was the biggest one. They were pretty fun. I hope to be able to continue doing that year after year. And just, I'm looking at George now. George is nodding his head. Hopefully he'll continue that next year.
Yes.
Thank you. Our fourth initiative is to work with the Delaware Real Estate Commission to help create some sensible rules and regulations that are good for the public and good for our business. When we look at our rules and regs right now, they look like they were written for business about 20 years ago, 30 years ago, and that's not the world we're in. That's one thing the pandemic's really taught us, is that it's advanced our profession by at least 10 years ahead of where we are. So when we look at our rules and regs, they're not reflective of where we are. And so we've appointed a task force to represent DAR's 4,500 members to look into their business models and what it's going to take to supervise offices, to have businesses, what it means to serve consumers and represent the public and protect the public at the same time. And then our last initiative for 2023, we are calling it Refresh. We're refreshing the annual convention. And I think Matt and Wes are going to talk about it a little bit later. But this was something that was kind of near and dear to me. I sat in a continuing ed class at convention, and we've heard it loud and clear from the agents, from the brokers. You sit in these classes and you're like, man, how many times do I need to take a module 4, office management? How many times do I need to take professional standards module 2? And at convention, we see that a lot of people come just to take their CE. And when we look at convention, we have a really great opportunity to not just catch the low-hanging fruit of continuing education at convention, but to concentrate on real professional development and what that means for our agents. So we have asked for anybody that wants to teach. You feel like you've got something to teach, something that you want to share. We have some information that went out in the Fast Facts asking you to submit an application for that. And I know a few people that have reached out to me already saying, hey, DAR asked me to teach. I'm really excited for it. So we're taking our classes. We're still going to have a little bit of CE, but we're taking our their classes, dropping them down to 90 minutes. That's another thing, attention span. I've noticed my attention span has declined significantly in the last several years. You know, if I'm sitting here in a class and I'm listening, it's going on the 2.5 hours. I'm like, I'm looking at my phone, I'm starting to get anxiety, I can't concentrate on anything. So we're going to take these classes, a lot of them down to around 90 minutes, and they're going to be packed with information, real professional development. I think just Niti and so, can I share one of them? Can I talk about one of them? Okay, Niti and Sony. Does anybody know Niti and Sony? He's from Sussex County. He's pretty smart guy. He's going to be teaching a class just talking about your business as a service. You know, when we get our licenses, we're not given a license to just go sell houses. We're given a license to open a business. And what does that mean? We have to look at our business. We're providing a service. It's not our house. It's not our money. You know, so we're not working with our house. We're not working with our money. We're providing a service to consumers. How do you make your service stand out from other service providers? He does a really, really neat sort of, I don't even know what you call it, a neat little presentation comparing it to a really popular business model. But it's going to be a really, really great class. We're going to do a couple of expert panels. Was anybody at the Hustle and Handshakes event last week in Newcastle County? See a few people nodding. It was a super, super cool event. It was about 100 people there, and we got to hear from agents with different companies, different business models, and asking questions. You know, what's going on? Stephen Matola was on the panel. What's going on in the luxury market? Questions come up about interest rates. How are you talking about the seller's dilemma, the buyer's dilemma, the seller that has to trade in that 3% interest rate and buy a house at a 6% interest rate? Kevin Toll from Keller Williams had just a fantastic response to that, talking about the 4 wins. If you're interested in that, you can catch me later. I think Wes is going to tell me that I'm going over on time. But anyway, that's the type of professional development that we really want the convention to get into. So again, there will be CE, there will absolutely be, you know, your module 3, real estate documents. There'll be a legislative update, but it'll give you a chance to really hone in on real professional development. So accomplishing these goals requires a strong team. I'm confident right now we have the right leaders in the right place, and it's the right time to reach these goals. And with that, Wes, are you going to introduce your staff in a little bit?
Yeah.
Okay, so Wes is going to introduce his staff. Do we have any DAR board members here? I see George, I see Sandy, Gail, Scott, Mia, Denise. Yeah, thank you, Bobby. Yes, yeah. Oh, you guys are so awesome. So thank you for being here, because you're all part of this mission. Any DAR committee members here? If you're on a committee, a lot of the same hands going up. Bruce on the forms committee, it's awesome. And then local board members, Kent, Sussex, Newcastle, real estate commissioners. These are all leaders. These are all the people that we're working with, and we're exercising our stewardship by getting together and collaborating. So, so with that, I want to thank you for your dedication and your service to your agents, your offices, and the industry. And I'm looking forward to a productive and inspiring day. So with that, Wes.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for coming out. Just some housekeeping for today. We do have a break in between. It's on the schedules in front of everybody. We have a few more snacks, and then we're going to finish the day with lunch at 12:45. So please stick around. If you stick around, you get an actual hard copy of the new seller's disclosure. So I hope you all do as well. Very important document, which Andy will be covering in his presentation. All right, we're doing that at the end, so you stay. So there's a point to that. I'm going to go through a couple of just honestly a sporadic list of our member benefits, just so everybody has a good grasp and kind of some of the things we've been offering lately. But first and foremost, I do want to introduce my staff. Nothing at DAR would happen without them, that's for sure. First and foremost, our Chief Operating Officer, Matt Lafferty. We got our new Director of Government Affairs, Jamie Clough. We got our new Director of Marketing and Communications, Lindsay Conaway. And all the way back at the back of the room there, we got Emily Rodriguez, who is our office assistant. I don't want to say staff, but obviously everybody knows Andy Taylor is our association attorney. He'll be doing the presentation at the end. And we also do employ 2 lobbying firms. You don't really see them or know who they are, but I'd like to point them out since they do a lot of the hard work in our advocacy program. Right now, it's Sean Finnegan with Maven Strategies. They're not here. And Scott Kidner, and I can't think of his company's name right now, the Kidner Group or something like that. But there are lobbyists that we utilize for our advocacy program. We've been very busy at DAR. I hope you all have seen that through our emails and our event offerings, which I'll talk about a few of the events coming up here. But we've had an incredible schedule. And please encourage all your agents. I encourage all of you to show up and come out. We do invest a lot of money into making sure the programs have been great. Thanks to Chrissy, we've been refreshing our thoughts on how we should have the events and the different programming that we offer. So please do utilize them. Again, sporadic list. This has no particular order, but I wanted to cover a few things. In terms of forms, everyone knows, I'm sure, that we've always utilized .loop, DocuSign, and Zip forms. If you're ever interested in switching your transaction management provider, whatever term you use for it, we do offer also Broker Mint and SkySlope. And if you don't want to use any of those, we also have just the normal fillable PDFs on our website. So please take a look at all those if you start to look at those contracts. We do utilize those. We don't offer them for free. We do provide them with the licensed forms, so you can use those platforms. Again, if you have any comments with any of the DAR forms in general, please go to our website. If you go to comments under the membership link for forms, you can submit any comments you have on any of the forms. And our forms committee then takes those comments and tries to incorporate them the best they can into the different forms we have. I'm sure all you saw this weird program we've been promoting lately. We have a license plate program. It's funny enough, we probably doubled or tripled what we've had in the last couple decades with that program lately. So we do offer a DAR license plate through the state if you're interested. Please take advantage of RETI, the Real Estate Technology Institute. Vast resource of different instructional videos from technology. Please push that to your agents. We've had great utilization with that. I don't remember off the top of my head, but we've had like half the membership or something. At least sign on to take a look at that. It has a lot of resources and different instructional videos, articles, product reviews, webinars, all about different real estate technology. So please utilize that. We also, one of our things we do for the public is we share market stats throughout the community. So we do take the Bright MLS stats and share them and provide a little context to reporters that consistently, thankfully, ask us every month how the market is doing, and they report on that. So if you ever want a nice design market stats form to share, if you don't have one as a brokerage already, you can go on our website and find those. Lindsay sent those out, and we've had really great response from the press on those. Let's see here. If you're interested in any discounts, we talk about this every year. Go to our website. We have a whole long list of different discounts for a lot of different companies throughout the U.S. that would be beneficial throughout your brokerages. We also, as Chrissy said, we do have a scholarship for the mediation program, the NAR mediation program out in Chicago. We do have 2 scholarships available this year. So if you have any agents or yourself is interested in learning more about how to mediate, this 2-day program is put on by a law school professor that NAR sponsors. Only 50 people can do it. So please take a look at that. We do offer 2 of them. We already got the seats, so nobody else can join them in the country. We also have a minority real estate scholarship that we launched actually this past April. We're trying to encourage more minority participation in the real estate industry. And this is really targeted, for the most part, to younger members of our community to get them engaged into the real estate community. And then lastly, if you're interested in running for any DAR leadership positions, so that would include president-elect, vice president, director at large, or a 2-year treasurer term, we are accepting applications until July 1st. So please take a look at those emails. We send them out once a month now. Fill out the application, and then our nominating committee reviews those. And possibly you might be able to serve like Ms. George. And lastly, what you're going to see throughout the community coming up for the month of June part of our, again, public marketing is we're going to have a campaign asking elected officials to prioritize affordable home ownership. So you'll see a bunch of billboards, you'll see social media all throughout the state, ads come up to prioritize affordable home ownership. So that's going to be the big push during June, which is National Home Ownership Month. In terms of events, I'm going to fly through a few of them real quick that we have upcoming. You'll hear about this in a bit, but we have our Understanding the new Seller's Disclosure Form for all our members. You all are pretty much the first ones that are going to see the new form today. But we're going to have this session for all members on May 22nd on Zoom. We've had a great response for that. So please encourage everybody to sign up for that. We have around 4,400 members now, primary members in Delaware, 400, 500 secondary members from out of state. And I don't know, we have 250 people signed up, I think. So the seller's disclosure has changed a lot. So everyone should be on that session that day. We are recording it, but don't tell people that. And we're recording this too. So our next one, we have a military relocation professional certificate course coming up. The next day, May 23rd, we're offering that via Zoom as well. We've had great response for this last time we offered it. So if any of your agents do anything with the members of the military, this would be a great certificate to obtain to be better at that. I do a series of hot topic sessions every month. I try to do them every month. We've had some, the ones we've had so far this year, we had a session about Delaware wetlands. We've had one about reasonable accommodations during Fair Housing Month. The next one we have is downtown development districts. There's a lot of opportunities, a lot of money, quite frankly, available for downtown improvement districts, for new development, for rehab. So you can learn more about that by a coach for downtown development districts, the businesses that go in there. So that'll be the June session. The Diversity and Inclusion Committee, we have a book club this year. Scott Farnan is leading our sessions. We have them once a quarter. The next book is Overcoming Bias. We do have a variety of books that usually deal with some sort of, the relevance is trying to stay with diversity and inclusion within the real estate world. So the next one's Overcoming Bias. In terms of the convention, I wasn't going to dive into this too much today. Chrissy did touch on the main parts of it. Matt, May 16th, 17th, is that what it says? Yep, that's what it is. October. Did I say May? October 16th and 17th, and this is off the top of my head. I didn't write this down in advance. On October 16th, it's going to start off with a happy hour, and then that evening, we're actually do our awards reception. There's a bit more to this. This is the high-level briefing of it all. And then the next day is really the fullest day. So October 17th, the trade show is going to go on all day again, as we did before. We're going to do all the different sessions throughout the day. And then that evening, we're going to end the night with the casino night, the fundraiser for our nonprofit. So it's going to be a very full event down at Dewey Beach. If there's one thing that's the most important to know about this, it's limited. The hotel's limited. Please sign up the moment the emails go out, because we only have space for 500 of our members. So please get on that immediately. We sold out in 4 weeks last year. So I have no doubt we'll be doing that again. And then lastly, the biggest event of the year, well, aside from convention, is our new event that we started last year, the Delaware Real Estate Summit. The theme of the event this year is past, present, and future. This is more for the general public, more for legislators, more for the general community to understand what's happening in the real estate world. It's not geared so much for our members, but everybody else. So we have a lot of different speakers from a lot of different industry groups that come out and are going to give presentations on different things. The builders are coming out. We have professors from the University of Delaware to talk about research that they've been conducting. We'll do a market report from each of the counties. So it should be a great event. Last year, we had over 500 people registered via Zoom. This year, we're having it in person with a trade show as well. So look out for news for that. I believe it's November 7th at DuPont Country Club. So that should be fun. I think that's it. Yep, so that's everything I have. I could go over a million other things, but we were limited in time today. But we're going to go right into an NAR update from Gail Bernalfi, who is our Region 3 RVP. Thank you, Gail.
perfect height for me. All right, good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me here, and I will be brief because now I know we're off schedule already. So I will be I will cut it down to a brief update on NAR and what's going on at NAR right now. As you know, I'm the regional vice president between NAR and Region 3, which includes Maryland, Virginia, West Virginia, Delaware, and DC. So that is my territory that I cover this year. So NAR is obviously devoted in ensuring brokers have the resources, tools, and services they need to run their businesses effectively and efficiently. So I'm going to give you a brief update on what's going on at the legal end of NAR. And some of you may be aware, hopefully you're up to speed on some of this because it's been going on. But there's actually, I'm going to hit on 3 issues. You know, our legal experts are confident we'll ultimately prevail in each case because at the core, we're always acting in the best interests of the consumers and the claims against us are without merit. So 1, NAR and 4 corporate defendants were sued in class action lawsuits filed in Missouri and Illinois, alleging home sellers have been damaged because their listing broker compensates the buyer's representatives. So in September, class action attorneys in the case of Missouri began notifying the class members of their legal rights and ability to opt out of the case. So this is typical in class action cases, but in no way reflects the actual or perceived merits of the claims nor the facts of the case. While the Illinois case is in earlier stages, the Missouri case is set to go to trial this fall, where our attorneys will make it imminently clear that we have the law and facts on our side. So there are 2 lawsuits stemmed from private listing networks. wanting realtors to bypass local broker marketplaces and market properties to consumers only within these private networks. So in this cases, the plaintiff's original complaints were dismissed, where a federal judge agreed with NAR that clear cooperation policy, and everybody knows what clear cooperation policy is. It provides consumers with access to more information regarding market conditions, enabling them to make better informed choices about the bundle of real estate brokerage services that will best service their needs. So the good news to share, in a clear victory for NAR in January of this year, a district court sided with NAR when it ruled that the DOJ must adhere to previous agreement with NAR to more explicitly state the spirit and intent of NAR's Code of Ethics and MLS guidelines in certain key areas. In fact, NAR already adopted clarifications to its guidelines for local MLS broker marketplaces to strengthen transparency for consumers. So the conclusion with these, we don't want to leave, NAR does not want to leave any doubt in anyone's mind about how transparent realtors and NAR's policies are. We need your help to educate consumers, policymakers, and other interested third parties about how the local MLS broker marketplaces work and how they promote equity, transparency, and market-driven prices options for consumers. So here's an important website I want you to write down, is competition.realtor. So you can educate consumers about the value of local broker marketplaces and how they create competitive, efficient, pro-consumer markets. So when I was at the NAR Broker Summit in Kansas City last month, Katie Johnson is the NAR legal counsel, and how she highly recommends that you use buyer brokerage agreements and how important it is because it spells out how we get paid as buyer agents. So, you know, there's a lot behind this, and I don't want to take too much of your time, but visit that, the website, again, competition.realtor. And also that empowers you to serve as informed ambassadors with consumers and protect our industry from misinformation by providing fact sheets, FAQs, articles, and infographics. There's also another website called realestatecommissionfacts.com. Again, realestatecommissionfacts.com. That is a consumer-facing website that helps dispel myths about commissions and explains how they work. You can also download, I mean, there's so many different NAR resources. Thank you, Mia. And here's one of them. It is called 179 Ways Agents Who Are Realtors Are Worth Every Penny of Their Compensation. So a great download and great content on that website. So check it out. Another real quick, I want to talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion. President Kenny Purcell has his president's strive to get everybody up and running on NAR's essential courses. That is the bias override, fair having, a fair housing simulation, at home with diversity certification, and LEAD diversity, equity, and inclusion course. Again, President Kenny has renewed the President's Challenge, which asks appointed and elected association leaders to complete the Fair Housing Challenge and the Realtors Commitment to Excellence program, the CTUX. One other thing, Good Neighbor Awards. Did you know that realtors volunteer at nearly 3 times the rate of a typical American? Did you know that? Yes, I know. I feel the love all the time. And I appreciate everything that everyone does every single day, because we are very proud in Delaware to give back to our communities, again, every single day. The second annual Realtor Volunteer Days are June 3rd through the 11th. Consumer ad campaign, I'm going as fast as I can. The 5th wave of the award-winning That's Who We Are national advertising campaign was debuted in February. I've actually seen the commercials. It really really shows the benefit of using a realtor. So I'm hoping to see you all in DC. We'll be riding with the brand there. So if you're all going to DC for the legislative meetings, I hope to see you there. So thank you all for being here today.
We actually have a really large group going in DC this year, so that's exciting. I think there's over 40 of our members throughout the state going, which I don't know how, I think that is, it's a pretty big number for what we've had lately, so that's great. Next up, I want to introduce Adam Yost. There we go. Broker Relations Director for Bright MLS. This is 3 years now, and I'm trying to get his name right, so please welcome Adam.
Good morning, everyone. It has been 3. It's the 3rd time. I'm seeing some familiar faces. I appreciate you all sitting in the same spots. That helps. Yeah, that's me. Do I have a clicker? Yeah. Thank you. I get excited about my clicker, guys.
Hold the remote.
Thank you. I don't get out as often as I used to, so this clicker is exciting to me. I have a lot of information. I hope your pens are ready. We've got a lot of things going on at Bright, particularly this month. So I'm just going to dive right in. Unfortunately, I can't stay for lunch. I was excited to see that. I do have to get across the bridge and get back to some meetings today. I'll leave some cards at that table if I don't get to something that you have a question on. If we have time, and I know we're crunched for time, I'll answer some questions if you have them. But I'm just going to dive in. Sound good? Thank you. All right. How many of you have heard of Nestle? Hopefully everyone has at this point. Nestle is a national website. National. Before, in this market area at Bright, we had Bright, it was Bright MLS Homes website. It's a public-facing website for anybody from the internet to search for properties for rent and for sale. Nestle works the same way, only it's more national. It's connected to multiple MLSs. The reason that this is important and the reason that we were a part of this initiative, we're one of 3 MLSs that helped create this, is that when somebody has a question on a listing, that lead is always going to be sent to the listing broker or agent. So it's not possible for somebody to purchase the zip code on the back end and have that lead go somewhere. Other than that, it's always going to go to the listing broker or listing agent. Couple of things on Nestle that you should be aware of if you're not already. Here's some exciting screenshots. Brokers have the ability to direct those leads to their CRM tool if you have one. So if your brokerage firm uses a CRM tool, and I think all of you know what that is, right? It's a contact management system. And you want those questions on listings to be directed to that CRM tool, that's something that you can enable. You don't have to do anything if you would like to have those leads directed to the listing agents. No action is required. It's working today for your listing agents. So when somebody goes to the website, pulls up one of your listings, has a question about that, requests a showing, that's going to be sent to the listing agent without any action. That's happening today. If you wanted to set up a CRM, we can help you go through that process. That lead goes to the CRM tool instead of the listing agent. Those emails are going to come from leads@nespoli.com. So I would encourage your agents not to delete those emails. Make sure they're receiving them. We don't want to have those blacklisted. For more information, you can go to the Nespoli link on Bright MLS. Media Sync is something that came out a while ago, right? I think since the last time I was here. Raise your hands. How many of you have heard of Media Sync? A few. You're kind of hesitant to admit that you own it. That's good. Media Sync is a tool that allows your listing agents to pull listings directly from vendor websites into their listing without having to capture that photo, download it to their computer, only to select that same photo and upload it to the listing. So it's a way more efficient process. It saves the listing agent, depending on the number of photos, at least 15 to 20 minutes to add that media. Here's what you need to know about Media Sync today. If your agents are using any of these vendors that are listed here in the blue, have them look for that button that says Media Sync to Bright MLS. If they see that button in these vendors' websites, they can select those photos, hit that button, and then have that added to their draft listing. So some of your agents might be using these vendors, but not be using that functionality, and they should try it out if they see it. Agents don't pay for this. This is paid for by the vendors that offer that technology. Teams. How many of you have teams in your brokerages? Yeah, quite a few. There's been some challenges with teams for years that I'm sure you all are well aware of. Teams want to get recognized for their production at the end of the year. In the past, the only way that they could do that is to have the team leader appear as the listing agent on all of those team listings. Well, now that we have teams can instead register as a team in Bright. At the end of the year, the production is added to the team name. That frees up the listing agent field so that the appropriate team member now can appear as the listing agent. And this is all dependent on whether the team wants to set it up that way or not. It's not required. But I've spoken to team leaders who prefer to do that because for years they've been playing the go-between. They get a phone call from another subscriber on a listing that they don't know very much about. And so then they have to just turn it to the listing agent, the team member that's more familiar with that listing. So teams are registering for teams, putting in the member name there in the listing agent field, still getting production rolled up to the team at the end of the year. Also on the buy side, if you've registered your team members, your team and your team members as a team, when one of those team members is identified as a selling agent on another listing, the team name is also added to that sell side, the buy side. So you don't have to call the listing agent back and say, hey, can you change the selling agent to reflect the team leader so that the production gets rolled up to the team. Does that make sense? If you haven't tried out Teams, encourage your teams to try it out. It doesn't cost anything. There's an enhanced version for Teams Pro if your teams want to try it out, but that's optional. This is something that's been asked for years. This is something we're calling preview, listing preview. This allows a listing agent to preview a draft listing in a format that looks pretty slick. We developed it, so I'm a little biased, but it's that middle picture here. So you can view a draft listing like this. You can do this today. Your agents can do this right now. from listing management in the top right, just selecting the listing options and then listing preview. What's going to change here soon is your agents will be able to share that draft listing in that format to a small group of people, including the broker, the office manager, the team leader, the co-list agent, and the homeowner. The homeowner. So now listing agents can send this out to the seller before it gets published in the internet, in the MLS, and then goes to the internet. This is going to help our subscribers avoid those uncomfortable phone calls from sellers who find their property on the internet without the proper remarks that they asked them to put into the listing. Or the flooring isn't hardwood in the dining room, it's something else, right? So now the seller will have an opportunity to review that before it goes out to the internet. Here's a URL I'd recommend writing down. It's brightmls.com/research. I was talking already this morning about our new chief economist, Lisa Sternovan. Lisa is incredible. All kinds of interesting insights on market trends. This is the website that you would go to see the research team's weekly reports, the monthly report, and all of those blog posts that she puts together, news articles on what she's seeing in the market. brightmls.com/research. All right, a couple of updates here. We're introducing a few new mobile apps. But before I get into that, let me talk about HomeSnap. I get a lot of questions on this. We have extended the agreement now through the end of June. And we're continuing to work with HomeSnap to define that relationship beyond that date. More update on that one when I have one. We're also introducing a new mobile app called MLS Touch. We introduced this yesterday. Anybody get a chance to download this yesterday? Oh, good. I have a quick tip for you. And for those of you who have navigated this, you will share this insight. You don't want to select, you have an option of states to choose. Yeah. Don't select Delaware. Look for bright area. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, it's not even there. Good. So I learned something today. Thank you. Well, that makes it easier, I guess. You can't accidentally select it. We're in some areas where you would be able to select Maryland, Pennsylvania, and our subscribers were selecting that and then looking for bright, and that's not going to get you what you want. What you want to see is bright MLS area. Select that option, and then you can download the app. Right, our MLS Touch is very new. It's so new that I haven't gotten my hands on it to give you any insightful things today about it. But I would encourage you to download it. I would encourage you to start using it. What you're going to notice right away is that it has a tighter integration with Bright MLS than some of the other apps. It'll save contacts are synced up between the two environments, save searches, favorites, notes. It's all integrated into that. So it's something you definitely want to check out. We're also introducing at the end of this month, Kubacasa. Kubacasa is a mobile app that allows agents to create floor plans from their phone. Pretty slick. A lot of you are familiar with this icon here. I don't think I'm going to be able to show it on the screen. There's an icon when you run a search in Bright MLS to identify listings with floor plans. It's that icon right here. Okay. Right. As you can see, and I just took this a couple of days ago, of the 8 listings roughly that I have displayed here, 3 of them have floor plans. That's a missed opportunity for agents who are looking to put that in. And this is going to allow them to put those in very easily by creating them from their mobile phones. Kubacasa. We're going to have more news on that later this month. We're kind of waiting for MLS Touch to get adopted, and then we'll start converting that message into Kubacasa. Here's a summary slide of some things I wanted to point out. We've talked about MLS Touch. The listing preview is also something that's mobile friendly. So when you share that draft listing with your homeowner, for example, they can view that on their phones. You're familiar with Showing Time mobile app. We've had that for a while. Kubacasa I mentioned. There's another one that I haven't yet mentioned, just to keep it on your radar. It's the Nestfully consumer app. The Nestfully consumer app, I would recommend considering that a prospecting tool, right? Those are more, that's more leads. As opposed to MLS Touch, that's really for clients and communicating, collaborating with your clients. But Nestfully is going to have a consumer app here available for anybody to download as well. It connects to the information on Nestfully. All right, I have a question for the group. I'm going to put you to work today. These things are happening so quick lately that I'm going to take advantage of our time together and ask you a question about something our product team is working on. How many of you have seen this screen before? Very good. I hope so. I hope I'm in the right spot, right? If you guys said I hadn't seen that before, I'd be concerned. There's a field to the right of each one of these statuses. It's a date field, right? How many of you search using those dates? Some, right? Some agents maybe. The coming soon status is one that I've been asked to research. So anytime I'm given an opportunity to speak to a group like this, my product team has asked me to ask this question. When you search for a date in there, should it be searching the expected on market date? Or should it be searching the date the coming soon listing was added to the MLS? So let's do a raise of hands. How many of you, when you put a number in there expecting to see, let's say 0 to 5, right? Those would be the coming soon listings that are expected to be on the market as active listings within the next 5 days. Raise your hands. Okay. And how many of you, if you put 0 to 5 in there and selected coming soon, are expecting to see listings that were added to the MLS as coming soon listings in the last 5 days? Well, that doesn't help me. That was about half, right? Well, let me tell you what's probably going to happen, but I am going to provide this feedback and let our product team know that we were split today. Right now, you're searching for expected on market date, right? I think we're going to change that so that it's actually going to be the number of coming soon listings in that status that were added to the MLS. There's another field called expected on market date, right, which we can continue to use if you're looking for those. Thank you for that feedback. That was a very scientific method there. This is my last slide here. And again, I'm going to leave some cards over here at the table if I didn't get to any of your questions today. I have monthly broker presentations. Hopefully some of you have participated in those. They're fun to do. I look forward to them every month. If you have suggestions, feedback on how we can make them even better, let me know. If there's particular topics you'd like us to cover, let me know. But I wanted to formally invite all of you to attend the next one. It's virtual. It's easy. It's the June 12th is the next one at 11 a.m. They're typically the first Monday of the month. Next month is an exception. This is the second Monday in June, but you're welcome to attend that. You can register on our website under the webinars. And that is me. That's my contact information for anybody that wants to write that down. You're welcome to. And if I have time, I'll take a question or two. Do you guys have any questions for me? Yeah.
When we need to purge a listing completely because we're being faced with fraud listings, and they should be pulled off as soon as not canceled, not withdrawn, but actually purged because the seller was tricked, the agent was tricked, the office was tricked. Is there a expedited process to purge a listing out?
So yes, I mean, there is a process. The first thing that you'd want to do is call our support team, talk to somebody in accuracy and policy, and request that be deleted. We have deleted listings when that happens. If you're not getting a fast response, you can reach out to me and I'm happy to voice that concern and make sure it's done.
And what was the rationale behind you guys did not, I guess, for a little bit, did not even put the buyer side of the agent and pending? Why?
Yeah. Well, that was a challenging day for me. Thank you. I can give you some insight on why we did that. So a lot of our subscribers for years have been talking about receiving phone calls from solicitation companies, such as alarm companies, just as an example, but there's several different ones. We believe that, not sharing the close date, for example, as widely as we had been would limit the exposure of that information and then decrease the number of solicitation calls. So that was one reason. The other thing, in terms of the buy side, when Bright MLS was first born, so 6 years ago, the selling agent information was exposed on both active under contract and pending statuses. We heard overwhelmingly from listing agents that preferred not to have that information exposed. They were concerned that there were going to be inappropriate conversations with a buyer agent exposing maybe confidential information on that transaction. So where we came down was, let's expose it for pending status, but not expose it for active under contract. That way, the office staff, managers, and brokers still had some transparency as to what their selling agents were involved in, right? So it was kind of a middle ground as a compromise. We're evaluating new ways to accomplish that goal outside of what we did. That was the intention, and it wasn't communicated as well as it should have been.
Because I think it's completely almost like most of us are concerned about the pocket listing. Those who actually start the issues, that's going to encourage, pocket listing, and we'll find out who was, selling brokers and then listing brokers. It's all, it's going to come up as the same except
Right.
brokers. So
we returned it back.
yeah,
Right.
Thank God.
So just so that everyone is aware, we did roll it back, and we're going to reintroduce that after we do some research and determine if it's something that we want to do. But ultimately, we want to allow the people that have a need for that information. We want them to be able to see it. So I'm thinking of like the office staff that needs to know when something goes under contract, one of their buy-side agents is involved in another listing. That information needs to go to the appropriate people. But we don't want to overexpose either. So we're trying to figure out how to get that done. But yeah. And I think I'm good. I'm out of time, but I'm going to leave my card over there. If anybody has any questions, feel free to reach out.
Thanks,
All right, we're going to transition now. We have a little fireside chat scheduled. It's the next thing on the agenda. We're running 10 minutes behind right now. Is everyone okay with that? We're not freaking out yet, right? All right. Jose, you want to come up there? So I want to welcome Jose Quinones. Does everybody know Jose?
Yeah.
Hello.
Thank
All right.
you. Thank
Can
you.
I stand or you want me to sit?
You can do whatever you
All right.
want. How do you feel
I feel
comfortable?
comfortable
Yeah.
standing. Can I stand?
Yeah.
All right, let's do it.
Can everyone hear Jose?
Yes, everyone can hear me.
Can you hear me? Wes, can you hear me back there? All right. So I tell you, every time I'm with Jose, I tell him, I just feel like I'm in the presence of greatness.
Yeah, right.
Like if you follow this guy on social media, all of your like your taglines, I think even your email signature, you have what does it say?
I feel like I'm giving my back to people. Can I stand?
Yeah,
next
you
to you? Yes.
My back to people.
There you go.
You have your email signature like this. What is it? Con comma?
Con calma. Con calma means, take it easy. Everything can be done smooth.
Yeah. Jose has so many great one-liners. I think one day I was talking about somebody that I worked with, I love, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, oh man, I love that guy. I'd follow him with my eyes closed.
Yeah.
And I was like, Doesn't that just describe loyalty? Yeah.
That's right.
So I asked Jose to share with us a little bit today, just about the broker leader, what it means to be a broker, what it means to be a leader. I think you're pioneering something. You're doing something different with your brokerage that no one else is doing. And yeah, just wanted to share that, just in the same vein of collaboration and inspiration and everything else that we're doing. So Jose, first of all, tell us a little bit about yourself.
All right. I want to start with this though, and I know they're gonna get tired of me, but as I stand in front of you, I want to always acknowledge it, and I'll do it every single time as long as I'm in this business. I want to acknowledge Bruce Plummer, Lee Johnson, and Bob McVeigh. These are three individuals that when I first got my license, I still don't know the reason, just took me under their wings. And I just want to thank you, for Jose Quiñones, coming into Sussex County out of the blue. They saw me running, I was fumbling all over the place, as most new agents do who are hungry. I'm not lying. And Bruce Plummer took me under his wing. I'm not with Coldwell Banker. I'm not with Mann & Sons. And they still took it upon themselves to sit me down, take me to breakfast often, and just impart knowledge. So I just want to acknowledge that, man. Every single opportunity I got.
I feel like you're doing the same thing though. You're sort of paying it forward.
Yes, I have to.
What you've received, you're also putting back out
That's
into
right.
the community
I have
and
to.
into your people.
So who am I? My name is Jose Quiñones. I'm from Puerto Rico. My formative years were spent in the inner city of New York in the 80s. So those of you that are old enough, you know that was hell, right? And by the time I was 18, I was a single dad of 3 kids. I came to Delaware, to Buck Tussle, Sussex County. I jumped on the Greyhound bus because I always knew I was better than my environment. I always knew I was better. I just couldn't escape it. So when I was like 23, 24 years old, I jumped on the Greyhound. I had a friend of mine that said, "Hey, man, I got this place down here where you can race your kids." I jumped on the Greyhound bus and wound up in Seaford, Delaware. Old True Blue, right? It was midnight or something like that when I jumped off the bus. And you know what I'm getting ready to say. There was 2 things that I noticed. No lights. I'm a city kid. No lights. And then smelling what? Right? So then I wound up in Delmar, Delaware, Route 76. And I remember waking up the next morning and I heard Spanish music, the smell of coffee. And when I looked out the back window for a moment, and I know you're going to find this out, for a moment I thought I was in Puerto Rico because all I saw was a bunch of men working the fields. It was July. The next day I went back to New York, got a Greyhound, a U-Haul truck, and I haven't looked back. I was a single dad, raised all my 3 kids here. And for 17 years, my specialty is working with men addicted to substances. So I ran a large methadone clinic in Dover, Delaware, and got married. And as when we were looking for homes, and I saw that was around 2013. As you guys know, the industry was starting to come back. And I have a passion for serving the Spanish-speaking community. I have a radio show, I just had a passion. When I saw the money the realtor was making, I scratched my head. I said, you know what, I'm going down this path. I got my license and here I am. I've been serving all my life, but I have finally found a vehicle that has transformed my life. And I know for a fact my grandchildren's life, right? Because real estate changed my life. Does that make sense? Is that enough?
That's good.
Right.
That's solid. Yeah, that's solid. Even though you saw, the money and we're going off the questions, I already getting started. The last 3 questions. Even if you saw the money that real estate agents were making, this never been what it's about for you.
Mhm.
Like you live a service mindset, a service model, a stewardship. You see the great privilege and responsibility that you have, and you're always giving back to a community and to your agents. So what does it mean for you to be a broker manager of an office? And how many agents do you supervise?
22 of us right now.
Okay.
Licensed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What made you want to take that role on? What does it mean for you?
I think I know for a fact, I've always had great common sense, and I've always known that, really, I got into real estate because I wanted to own. I wanted to own real estate. I know for a fact that being a homeowner, it's a pivotal thing for individuals that I represent that look like me. You know, first generation homeowners, you know, the freedom, home ownership, you know, being able to put your children through college, you know, the safety of saying that I'm a homeowner. And being a broker for me now is making sure that those that look just like me know that there is a path to make money in real estate in Sussex County at the beach, serving communities and impacting other professionals by your journey. Am I rambling?
No,
You know, impacting other professionals by your walk. So I'm always asking my agents, hold me accountable because I'm going to hold you accountable. And actually, there's many brokers here that we've had many deals together. You know, that's what I live by. You know, I'm always using the words, I don't want to lock horns. I ain't trying to lock horns. We're in the same business, man. Like, what's up? Like right now, actually, I'm not going to mention your name. Right now, I got a bad deal going on with another broker. And when I call, I say, hey, you know, you're all right. Listen, this is what I'm coming to you with. How we going to work this out? So at the end of the day, it's about accountability, proper conduct, fear, no exposure. You know, and that's what I'm always.
Yesterday, I
You
love
know,
it. Say it again.
Proper conduct, fear, no exposure. And as realtors, we know we are always, a lot of people always hiding from that. You know, but proper, and it's on my wall in my office. Proper conduct, fear, no exposure. So if you want to come to me, I don't care if you're one of my agents, I'll be the first one to throw you under the bus if you did something. Lick Dryden was my original broker. This guy gave me my first shot. Right? Little old white dude, man. Like this guy took a loving from me. And he always told me, bring me an issue when it's a bonfire. I hate wildfires. And that's what I tell my agent. Bring it to me while it's here. Let that pride go. So we can make some money and move on. Because I'm not trying to deal with no, because if it's a wildfire, people won't get hurt. Make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you and I talk a lot about cooperation and what it means to co-broke deals with other agents. And, you know, one of the things that we always say is, hey, look, and you just said it, you know, we don't need to be adversaries. We're on opposite sides of a transaction. We're both representing our clients. We don't need to be adversaries because we're trying to accomplish the same thing. What is it, and can you tell us a little bit about what it means for you, well, to teach your agents about the skill of cooperating?
Say that again.
Like, how do you talk to your agents about cooperating with other brokers and other agents?
Yes, I like to keep it simple, man. If you decided to join our agency, it's because you believe in what we represent. You know, so I think there's not much discussion. You know, at the end of the day, it's about honesty and really what is our number one duty. There's somebody tell me, what is our number one duty? Protect the public. Protect the freaking public. So if you are protecting the public, you're protecting yourself. How do I live my life? I said I want to be a phenomenal husband. So I know if I do what the best that I can to be a phenomenal husband, I'm going to be a great business owner. I'm going to be the best that I can in everything. So we don't need to break this thing down. If you committed a mistake, own up to it, and let's deal with the consequences. So I can move on and make some more money.
It does make sense. So we've all heard integrity. Yeah, integrity is described as, you know, doing the right thing even when no one's looking. Mm-hmm. And so you have this other expression that I love. And every time you say it, I laugh because it's like you say it and then I forget it later and I never get to use it. And then you say it again. I'm like, why can't I just remember to use this? But you talk about commission breath. What's commission breath?
Commission, well, old school individuals know what I mean by commission breath means that you see a lot of people coming into the field, right? They as we know, it's like that 1% that's going to be skyrocket success in our business. But most people come in saying that's going to be me, but they don't have no parachute. That's not. So when I meet with people, which I rarely bring people on, is, hey, you got to make sure that somebody in your household is working. Right? Because I don't want that responsibility. Like me, I'm a motivator. I've messed up a lot of people when I first, because I was motivating everybody, and they jump in, they drown me. And now I'm putting that pressure on myself. So commission breath means, and I've seen it in this business the past 10 years, the biggest issues, problems, ethics violations that I've seen in my career were done by phenomenal individuals with great heart, who were just under pressure because they were chasing that money. You know, you're doing the final walkthrough, buyer say, man, that look like Mo. You're like, no, that ain't Mo, let's go. Right? Why? Because you're trying to get to that settlement table. And now 2 months later, that person coming back, the whole wall black. So commission breath, most agents that are, especially now that I'm seeing, they are being driven by commission breath. So I like to stop them. Hey, you might need to pivot and do some other things. So my philosophy of my agency is like, let's first help you make some money by becoming an investor yourself, so you can really do what you like. I like surfing. So the first thing that I did when I became an agent is let's go deal with the hardship, which is taking care of my family. So I went and bought a bunch of rentals, bunch of them. As a group, we own a lot of freaking rentals. So that's taking care of that. Now I can sit up here. I can really be a leader. I can sit back and talk about all the beautiful things about being a realtor, because I am no longer being driven. I don't need my buyer's commission. I don't have to close my doors ever of my brokerages because I stopped making a commission. This is, I'm on a mission to make sure that others that look like me know that it's possible and doing it the right way in this industry.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. Isn't he inspiring, you guys? Yeah.
I'm inspiring to myself, you know. and as you guys know, in this industry, and especially in the set, it's tough, man. Yeah. Right? We have a tough industry. You know, I just commented Lee Johnson, but that's a rough boy right there. And we've had some tough deals, but at the same time, I know for a fact that if I deal with if I'm not focused on the money, I love that man. I don't have no adversary, so I don't see it. Right? And that sounds like La La Land, right? That's not what it really, because I've already dealt with what was shown.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's switch gears for a little bit, because you've talked about people that look like you a few times. You've said that a couple times now. And, you know, DEI means something different to all of us, I think.
Everybody know what that
means? No, you know, everybody knows, right? Diversity, equity, and inclusion. And it means something completely different to you. You know, just in our conversations that you and I have had. In our talks, you shared with me that one of your biggest goals was to own a real estate company in the beach area, and you do it. You're crushing it. You own a real estate company in Rehoboth Beach, and we're super, super proud of that. But tell us a little bit about what it means for you, and especially right now, you're the laborer. You're laying the foundation for a vision, a dream that you might never even see come to fruition, you know, in your life. But you're laying the foundation for other people to follow behind you. What does this mean for you?
You know, I just want to say that, right? I'm not the first one, because it's been done in many different industries. But I know for a fact that by me, I could have stood in Seaford, you know, and been fine. But I knew the more and more I've been in this industry, the more and more I realize when I meet all the minority agents is that there's certain stigmas that come with certain areas of our state, right? At the beach, I ain't going to the beach, man. No, like, that's not for us. And if I'm lying, please hold me accountable. So what I said to myself, I'm going to use my own dollars to open up a phenomenal office, state of the art, by the club, and
it's a really cool office,
and do independent, and make sure that money is not the factor. Just watch. That's a 10-year plan in 3 years increment, and the goal is to build relationships. So the goal is, and I'm seeing it already, right? Because those that are in Sussex County, you know, when I first got my license, we can count on one hand how many minority agents were actively selling real estate. And now we have a lot. So that came from somewhere. I'm not going to take all the credit. So I'm saying now, I would love to see We would all love to see more successful individuals of diverse backgrounds. So I'm saying, you know what, I'm gonna go out to the frontier, you know, and figure out how to make this happen. Right or wrong, you know, that's the way you do it. In Spanish, there's this saying, I'm gonna try to translate it. It said, Christopher Columbus, what was he? The explorers, right? The explorers, they get all the arrows and the settlers get the land. So I'm the explorer, you know, and my goal is that the settlers get the land. So by opening up that office, it's just playing the game long term, but in another 10 years, it's going to be a beautiful place, right? Because we're going to see other individuals that have dared to jump out, and because they saw it being done successfully, and without having to cut throat, without having to do no underhanded things that we tend to do, and have fun and be a true leader in their community.
What have been some of the biggest challenges that you faced opening an office in Rehoboth Beach?
Well, I was in none in Rehoboth because I came ready. You know, in Rehoboth Beach, there haven't been none because the real question is, you know, opening up my first brokerage, because that's easy. I know what I'm doing in regards to, you know, I've served a niche market. Everybody knows a tough niche market to serve. So if you can serve that, I can serve anything. Now I say it's about learning things. So the toughest things that I've experienced opening up a brokerage, I don't know, I was 42 years old when I came into this business. So I got great common sense, and I know for a fact that nothing will happen to me for the rest of my life that I have not experienced as far as pain. So every day, this is who I am. Everybody, this is, you know, I really, if I had to point one thing out, then I would have to look in the mirror and say, why you complain? There's nothing to complain about. I haven't had no challenges. What, being called out of my name or showing up to show a listing in Seaford? Actually, one of Coldwell Banker's listing, he's not here, Rick, where you show up and there's a guy coming out with a Confederate flag saying, and I got a minority couple that I'm selling the house, and he's looking at me with a gun in his hand saying, is that the best you can move next door to me? I don't know, showing up to show a house in the backwoods of Seaford, and, you know, state troopers showing up saying what you hear. You know, you don't look like a realtor, you know, like those kind of, if I had to point that out, that's not a complaint, because I know I got to stand and keep pushing forward. Does that make sense? I don't know. I don't have nothing to complain about. I'm just grateful and thankful, making money, taking care of my family, being a leader, showing others how to do it. And then, as many of you know, holding others accountable in our industry. And I think that was one of the questions, you know, like, what is missing in our industry? What can I see change? I think as brokers, I wish that we had the intestinal fortitude to hold our agents accountable.
That we had to go.
And why, right? Because some of us, right, it's all about that money. So what happens is that when you have a high producing agent or a team and you are being challenged about your agent, now I'm calling you as the broker, but you got him in the room, which is okay, but he's doing all the talking, and all I hear in the background is like, oh yeah, okay, I'll call you back. And when you call me back, you just a mouthpiece for the individual. So what I'm saying is, I always tell people I'm a snitch, because I'm gonna go ahead and go. I'm gonna put in a complaint. So I feel that people should be held more accountable. Right? We talk about it, but I don't see much of that.
Yeah, we do talk about it, and you know, our code of ethics requires us, in order to enforce the code of ethics, requires all of us to participate in that enforcement. So you already answered one of the questions that I had for you about what are some of the most important things you think that could change in the real estate industry right now? So the broker supervision, obviously, and you said intestinal fortitude. I think that's cool. Teams. Now you supervise both individual agents and teams. Yeah. What are some of the challenges you have with supervising teams right now? Because it seems like teams is still relatively newer to Delaware within the last 10 years or so.
People will point to me as the reason. I would say this. You just got to be honest and transparent. And not have commission break yourself.
Yeah.
I think that will solve everything. We are all ethical. I'm not questioning nobody's education. And we all know what we need to do. We all pass the test. We all been doing this for a while. You know what's the right thing to do. Hold them accountable. Hold them accountable. And if not, they need to go open their own stuff. I don't know if that's how simple it is for me, man. You know, like you don't get no, hold them accountable. If they hold them, I'll walk you to school. Right now, you know, I'm sorry, you're on your own.
You walk to the court office and transfer their meeting.
You know, like, so for, at the end of the day,
I'm you right now.
I'm telling you, but imagine if we, you know, at least 80% of us were in that same accord. Man, it will be really fun. I'm having fun, right? Because I don't care. You know, I'm gonna do what's right for my family. So when it comes to team, hold them accountable.
Yeah.
There's some teams doing some phenomenal things.
Yeah.
But
And
then
I
there's others.
think there were some teams that been in business, 30 years, give or take. And then it seems like the growth of the team just really took off in the last 10 years or so.
Mhm.
So it feel a little lighter here.
Mhm.
If you had a time machine
Uh-huh.
and could go back in time, what would you tell your younger self?
Get out of your head. It's not that serious.
Yeah.
You know, stay out of your head. Stay out of your head. Man, I wish if I would have done this 20 years ago, it'd be a whole different world, man. So stay out of your head. And then the main question was Linda Lisa, right? What the heck was that?
Oh, I know. I was saving that one
Right.
for last.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I remember when your brokerage first opened, I'm like, who's Linda Vista? And when I got to know you, you're telling me more about your brokerage, and there is not actually a Linda Vista.
No.
Linda Vista. So tell us a little bit about the name of your company and why you chose it.
Linda Lisa stands for beautiful view, but for me, it's all personal. That's the street that I grew up in Puerto Rico. So I grew up in a very poor town, and I was in my late teens when my grandmother passed away. When we went back, I remember all the houses I built up on stilts, and it's a big hill. And when you look down at the town or the houses, it's poor. But when you look up, you got nothing but $1 million views of the coast. And that's why they call it Linda Vista. And on that day, I really decide that that's how I'm going to spend the rest of my life. I'm going to wake up. It's not your fault if I'm having a bad day. I'm going to make sure that I have a Linda Vista every day I wake up in my life.
That's beautiful.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
that's it.
I love it. I love it. Does anybody have any questions for Jose? No.
I'm doing a deal with somebody in your office, and I had swore I met somebody named Linda Vista. I had no
They
idea.
get all related. Okay. So 98% of my agents are female, and they all say, I said, own it. Don't even, once again, that comes back to that locking horns. Don't get defensive. If somebody say, hey, Linda, you say, hey, what's up? Own it. Don't let nothing block that interaction.
Try to, kind of convince him to change the Jose Quiñones realty, but it's not working.
My own office, and I just figured his partner was Linda, and I swore I met her maybe shopping one time somewhere.
Once again, man, the confidence that you see up here, I think it's always been there, but I just must, even though I'm over here, right, and also every time I point a finger, there's people pointing back. Every time I point a finger, I know that. But I just must say, man, if it wasn't for the individuals in this room, which I didn't know they were going to be here today, I would not be here, or I would not have the opportunity I have today, because they're my competitors. But these brothers took it upon themselves to make sure that they clear away. So I know that there's hope. I know that there's others that want to see our industry prosper and change and move on with the time. You know, I'm living proof. I cannot be here without the individuals that I mentioned. You know, because I was with a brokerage, but once again, it was a mom and pop, and it was the Wild Wild West. So I was out there, just running around, doing some crazy stuff, and I had individuals pull me by my collar and help me along the way, which is phenomenal. And now it's my job to not hide that and to pay it forward. Make sense? Thank you.
So Jose, I love you. I love working with you. We're being told that it is time to,
Yes, sir. Let's do it.
to wrap up. So thank you so much. And
pleased to welcome Dr. Jessica Lounce via Zoom today. Dr. Lounce is the Deputy Chief Economist, which is a brand new title for her at the National Association of Realtors. Her core research focuses on analyzing trends for both NAR members and housing consumers. Dr. Lounce has joined us before, and we're really happy to have her again. And hopefully Zoom works right when she signed on. NAR's internet went down, so she's on a hotspot down at NAR. So welcome, Jessica.
Hey, great. Thank you. Can you all hear me okay? Wes, can you give me a thumbs up if that's working okay on your end? Okay, cool. Awesome. Thank you. I am joining you today from the DC office. We are getting prepared for our realtor legislative meetings that are starting in a hot second on Saturday. So I really appreciate you all having me join you remotely. Travel would have been a little bit hitchy if I came in. So thank you. We're excited for the realtor legislative meeting. In fact, we're having an entire block party at the Nat Stadium where all of Hill staff and Congress people are invited, and they're expecting a lot of people to come out and really meet realtors and see a wave of blue in the stadium. So it's very, very exciting. I want to jump in and I want to show you some of the trends that we're seeing in real estate right now. I'm also going to show you some of the local data where I was able to pull it. I was corresponding with Wes actually, and we have a lot of local data on our website that lives there. And so as you're working in your local communities, if you ever want to pull that, that is there for you as a resource. I also, within every one of these slides, and I'll share these with Wes afterwards, there's citations for the research. So if you want to grab any of this information, it's yours as a realtor out there, as a member, you can grab this as a resource as well. So I would say the big thing today is to really go beyond the headlines. We're hearing a lot of misinformation in the real estate market today. There's a lot of headlines that are applicable to perhaps the nation as a whole, but they're not applicable to your local market. And as we look at the real estate market today, what we can see is a lot of the misinformation is negative misinformation, saying things are increasing by 100% when really we're seeing it go from 1 to 2%. This is one of the things that I think is out there as a misinformation is just the number of offers that every home is receiving right now. If we look at March of last year, so about a year ago, what we saw is that there were 5.5 offers for every home that was listed. There was really fierce competition in the marketplace. People understood that interest rates were going to go up. They jumped in and they moved quickly. If we look at fall, what we saw is the interest rates tipped 7%. And so obviously that the market slowed down considerably. A lot of buyers could not afford to purchase a property, as the typical mortgage payment would have gone up by $1,000 per month. For the typical buyer out there, that was very hard for them to fathom, especially if they had been priced out and overbid repeatedly in that spring housing market. As we see it today, we are seeing 3.2 offers for every home that's listed. It's a little quicker than what we would see for the historical pace at about 2.5. So we are ticking back up. This really does speak to a spring market. We are seeing that offers are there since interest rates are now in the 6.5 range. People have gotten used to the fact that interest rates have gone up. A lot of people have tired of sitting in their parents' basement waiting, and they have this pent up demand. They are ready to purchase a home today. If they can afford it, they want to get in. We also know that investors and vacation buyers, of which I suspect that many of your Delaware markets with your beautiful beaches have plenty of these buyers. As we look at this, what I would say is that there's no clear definition anymore of what that vacation buyer versus that investor is because of services like Airbnb or VRBO. It allows someone to both have a vacation property and an investment property all rolled into one. If we look at January of last year, we saw 22% of the buying market was actually purchasing this type of property. We also had the lowest amount of inventory in the US at that point. Right now, we're seeing this back at the historical norm, about 17% of the market. That's a good thing for first-time home buyers to see this go down, perhaps. And it does suggest that investors who really popped in probably to flip that property when they had the lowest inventory that we've ever recorded are now perhaps out of that market now, thinking of short-term rentals, long-term rentals, or just that vacation property as well. Another trend that I'm watching right now that I think is quite important is the all cash buyer trend. And if we look at this historically, what we can see here is we're above the historical norm. We're at 27% of the marketplace, and it's been bouncing around 29, 28, 27. Regardless, if we go back to October of 2022, it's been trending about more than a quarter of the marketplace since then. If we look pre-pandemic, we're looking at high teens for this number, and there's some reasons why we're seeing this proliferation of all cash buyers. One is we have a lot of baby boomers in the marketplace. They've been in their home for a long period of time. They're looking for a retirement property, and they're saying, I want to do this. And perhaps I'm moving to a more affordable area where I can actually pay all cash, or I can put down a very sizable down payment. So that's one of the reasons why this is happening, is actually primary residence buyers. The other trend, of course, is that past chart when we see that there are a pretty substantial share, 17% of vacation buyers and investors, they're likely all cash buyers as well. So you have this mix of different buyer types who are able to pay all cash in this environment. This is, I think, a really important chart because the misinformation that's out there is pretty extreme when we look at this. And one of the things that I keep seeing over and over again, when I open Instagram or if I open TikTok, I'm seeing a lot of videos and reels that are really suggesting that there's going to be this wave of distressed sales. I'm not seeing it. And we do see a lot of homeowners have a substantial amount of housing equity with the price gains that we've seen over the last few years. And so as we look at this share, I think it's important to actually look at the numbers, to actually tell clients, no, I don't think prices are going to drop, not in my local area. This is not what we're seeing. This is not what we're suggesting. And I'll show you some of your local data as well. If we look at this right now, we see that on a national scale, just 1% of realtors have worked with a distressed seller in the last month. If we look at that back in 2009, to be frank, it was about half. And so, yes, that was a very different environment, and it was different for a lot of reasons. If we look at the reasons behind why this is so different, we know that we have tight lending standards today. It's hard to obtain a mortgage, and it's actually getting harder. From every anecdote that I'm hearing is that it is very difficult. You have to be able to verify your income. You have to have that high credit score. You even have to verify the length of time within a specific employer rather than just a specific career path at this point. And so that's just increasingly getting harder for a borrower out there. We also know that there is limited inventory. Building has been up in recent months, and that's a good thing, but we do need substantially more building over a longer period of time to make up for that gap. So if we look right now, we're short by about 6.5 million homes in the US, and it goes beyond just new housing starts. We really need to be thinking about revitalizing and remodeling projects. And we've been talking about office space and putting those into residential units, but what about vacant hotel motels? What about looking at residential units created out of vacant malls? We really need to be thinking about ways that we can bring in these residential properties. And the reason why we do need this so dramatically is that if we look at the demographics, what we can see is that there's a lot of young adults who are trying to have household formation at the same time that older adults are aging in place. And all of these factors are really hitting ahead. And so this does become a very different housing paradigm with increased equity for homeowners, increased prices for home buyers, and unfortunately that's holding some consumers back. If we look at existing home sales overall, all of the blue and green already happened. We're in the red right now. So at 2023, we're that first red bar. What we can see here quickly and visually from this chart is that the green was really out of bounds. It was unusual activity that we saw in the real estate market at that time. It was really this pandemic-driven boom with low interest rates, a lot of people saying, I need more space, a home office, a yard, and I suddenly have the freedom to work where I want to. And so we saw a lot of people jump into the housing market at that time. If we look at 2023, we know that we're not going to be able to compare to last year's spring market. And so we can see that home sales activity is down in comparison to last year. Looking into 2024, there's a couple positive things that are bound to happen here. One is the expectation that interest rates will go down. And if they go into that 5% range, a lot of home buyers are suddenly going to feel some freedom and the availability to actually enter the market. At the same time that we have the expectation that Lawrence Yunes, our chief economist, forecast is expecting 5% range, we have a lot of young adults. and they're expecting to purchase a home. In the next 3 years, every single boomer that's out there is going to be over the age of 60. So all of these factors are going to be really out ahead as well. And so looking at that, we do expect higher home sales in 2024. Looking at your local data, what I can see here is pretty encouraging signs. We know that home sales are down. Again, we cannot compare last year. The good side here, the flip side of this, and what I will say is different than some local markets, is that you continue to see home price increases, both in the listed price and in the sales price. Now you can see here, there is a difference. That 6.15 versus 5.26 means there could be some negotiation that's actually going on, and perhaps buyers actually have the ability to negotiate in some of your local markets, and that's certainly a good thing, something they haven't been able to do in the last couple of years. However, on the flip side, what we're seeing here is that pending is down as well, but inventory is up. So perhaps because inventory is actually up, we'll start seeing that turnaround there. But again, the comparisons to early 2022, we really shouldn't be making them just because it was such an unusual marketplace. Now, of course, we're going to make them, but it is hard to make those comparisons to a really fevered pace in the real estate market. All right. I want to talk about longer moves because I suspect that you all are seeing this here in your local areas. So let me jump in here. As we look at Delaware, what we can see is that employment conditions are actually pretty favorable and jobs are actually rebounded in your local area, 3.9% above what they were in the pre-COVID. So this is a good thing. And that's a driver of where people move. And so actually, if we look at this chart, it's a heat map. Anything in red is where people are actually seeing less population growth. Anything in blue is favorable population growth. People are moving there. And if I look at the chart on the right-hand side, I don't know how this is conveying, but again, you'll get all these slides as well. Delaware is actually right smack dab in the middle. You're actually seeing population growth within your state there. And I suspect a lot of people have moved there during the pandemic. I actually know friends of mine who have done that as well, looking for more property, more space, something that they can't find in DC, actually close to the beach, having a yard, all of the beautiful amenities that you have, and people have found that quite favorable to move into these local areas. So seeing that population growth there. To put a finer point on this, we do ask a consumer survey, our profile home buyers and sellers, of where people are moving within these local areas. And what we can actually see here is there's a growth within small towns, a growth within rural areas, within resort areas. That's where we saw growth in the last year. And it's not necessarily a surprise. I have to say this is self-reported data. So even if it's metro to metro, if it's a smaller metro, they could be saying I'm moving to a small town, but we all know it's not the truth. So, take it with that caveat. To put a finer point on this, though, when we look at the distance moved, it really is pretty extraordinary. From 1989 to 2021, people stayed pretty close to home when they made a housing trade. They moved 10 to 15 miles. Now they're moving 50. And if we look at repeat buyers in the marketplace, they're actually moving 90 miles. So thinking about those baby boomers who are out there moving this very long distance away, it really is a change that we have not seen before. What I have to say is that really elevates your game because you know your local market, you are that local expert. And so conveying that to the client is quite important as well. They don't necessarily know that area. Even if they vacation there, that's not someplace that they really know. One of the things that continues to happen in the data, and I keep expecting it's going to slide down, but we're not seeing it, is virtual tours, virtual showings, open houses. All of these are happening with the realtor. The realtor is walking through the home and showing their client this house, but this is not that buyer physically seeing that home. It's at 7% right now. We keep seeing it moving around, but this is a pre-pandemic, we never had this trend. It was 0 to 1%. We really did not see it in the data. We continue to see it. Again, I think this changes what realtors are doing. It ups your game with technology, but it also changes that relationship as well. That trust that's placed in you is very different than what it was in those expectations pre-pandemic, but it's certainly happening. Good friend of mine, she moved from the DC area to Phoenix, Arizona during the pandemic. She decided during the middle of the pandemic that that's what she wanted to do. She wanted to be close to her mom. I don't know if she got tired of her mom. I don't know what happened there. But then she decided to move to West Virginia. One day I get a picture of chickens and I was like, cute chickens. Why am I seeing this picture? And she said, well, they came with the house that I just bought in West Virginia. People are doing it. They're doing this sight unseen. They're placing a lot of trust and she's extremely happy. And now she has cute chickens. So that's cool. All right. So I want to go into a couple of reports that I think could help right now. These are reports that we've been doing for a number of years, but we really want to push them out right now in this unique time. In the last couple of years, you could really put a house on the market and it would move quickly. There'd be a line out the door. And right now, homes are staying on the market for a longer period of time. Things like home staging and fixing up the home to make it appealing to buyers is back. And so as we look at this data, if you ever have to convince a seller, we have hard data on it. We know that it's going to move the home faster, and we also know that you're going to get an increased offer on that home. The typical increase in that offer is 1% to 5%, so definitely well worth the actual cost of staging, which can range dramatically based on what you could do within that home. So this entire report is devoted to that and looking at the impact and where you could see it most within the home if you actually put your money that way. The other report that we have is looking at remodeling. So we know that 1 in 5 buyers who are millennials and Gen Xers are making compromises on the condition of their home. Something has to give there. They can't get all the bells and whistles. And so as they go into that home, talking about remodeling, having that be an open conversation. They're not going to see the home they saw on HGTV. It's just not going to happen. So having that conversation could be quite helpful, but also talking to sellers about your turn on value, your bang for your buck of what you put in if you need to fix up that home for sale, what you can get back. Hardwood floor refinishing, that's the one that takes it away. It's 147% return on value. I have to say this is a typical home in a typical neighborhood. We're not looking at high end, low end here. Also, just the joy score. If you're going to put the work into the home, how much joy will that homeowner have on that project? And we have that as well, just from that perspective. And then we also looked at outdoor projects, the curb appeal. 95% of you all agree that curb appeal is important. When you actually do put a home on the market, it's incredibly important. It's the first thing that someone sees. Investing in standard lawn care, just making sure your lawn looks nice, 217% return on value. It is the lowest project that costs money here. It's a few $100s, but you do get the biggest bang for your buck. Landscape maintenance, 104%. If you put it in, you'll probably get it back. So again, talking to your potential sellers out there could be really helpful and have them make a quicker sale out of that and be happier at the end of it as well. And again, the joy score here, I have to say putting in a pool is always a perfect 10. I love that. I love summer. I love hanging by the pool, my community pool. So I get it. Landscape lighting, a new patio, all of these things, having a high joy score here as well. All right, so let me talk briefly about a couple of generational trends that we're seeing here. I want to give you all of the population in the US. So we have the pandemic babies born in the last year in the green, and then as unfortunately mortality rates, we can see the gray bars getting shorter for the silent generation. Not that many people making it past 95, so pretty short bars there. Smack dab in the middle of this chart is the millennial generation in the sea of blue. This becomes really important when we talk about that inventory crisis and that wave of young adults that we're seeing coming in. The red bar there. That is the median age of first-time homebuyers at 36 years old. And so if we look just past that, what we can see is that between the ages of 26 and 32-ish is that peak of young adults. And they're really trying to find their first home. They're out there and facing a lot of challenges as they do so. Limited inventory, affordability, all cash buyers, and they have an FHA loan, all of those factors at play. Also, what's important to note out on this chart here is that you can see the baby boomers in the next 3 years, all of them are going to be over the age of 60. And so that becomes important too as we think about retirement and where they want to live. Is it their home that they're in right now, or is it somewhere else? In the middle, Gen Xers, not going to talk much about them. They are a smaller generation. In the purple, what I will say is they're in their peak earning years and they're able to purchase the home that they want to be in at this point. They do have a lot of family pressures, though. Likely could be a multi-generational buyer, one who's taking care of aging parents, also could have kids who boomerang back, as well as kids under the age of 18. So a lot of pressures there trying to find that perfect home. As we look at the market today, unfortunately, what we see is that first-time home buyers, their share has dropped just to 26%. This is the lowest we've ever recorded it. A historical norm would be 40% of the real estate market would be first-time home buyers. So really seeing a pretty substantial drop off here. And we've talked about the reasons why we're seeing that. The other factor, though, and I think what's really important, is that the age of home buyers has changed pretty dramatically too. So if we look at first-time home buyers, they used to be between the ages of about 28 and 33. Low 30s, young 30s is where you would find a first-time home buyer in. Now that first-time home buyer is closer to 40, they're at 36 years old. So that's going to change perhaps the buying intentions of that property, where they're looking, if they have kids in tow. All of those things are really going to change and shift there. We also can see this other dramatic change here, and really a more dramatic change is looking at the age of your repeat buyer. It used to be 36 years old, and today it's 59. So thinking about just the shifts in that buyer's needs, how long they plan on living in that home, if they plan on aging in place, is this their retirement property? All of those factors at play, where a 36-year-old would not have those factors at play. This would be typically buying your family home at this point. So really seeing this pretty big change that we are seeing here in the data. I want to talk a little about boomers. They are the biggest generation of home buyers today. It had been millennials for the last 8 years. Millennials were the biggest population. They were the biggest share of home buyers. They're not anymore. Inventory struggles, affordability, student loan debt, childcare costs, rising rents, all of those things are holding back those first-time home buyers. And so we're seeing that age rise and a share drop. When we look at boomers, they are the biggest generation of buyers, and they have housing equity and they have money. And if we look at your local state, we've actually done a recent report on this and the wealth gains that people have had through home ownership. And what we can see is that your typical homeowner within your local state had gains within the last decade of between $80,000 and $160,000, depending on their income level and the neighborhood that they were buying in. So as we look at these baby boomers, what we know is that even within your local area, if they're staying put, they have quite a bit of equity to make that move with and really buy that ideal property. If we look on a nationwide whole, we know that there are those very long migration flow patterns. And so people could be relocating within your state from very expensive areas where they really can pay all cash and really do hold the cards in the housing market. And as we look at this, there's some trends that really stand out for today's senior buyers that are very different from past generations. And when we look at this, what we know is they are following the grandbaby. They're moving these very long distances, multiple states away, just to be close to friends and family. It's the number one motivating factor to move today, is to be close to friends and family. The other thing that we know is that downsizing is really out. In fact, what we see is that for baby boomers are typically purchasing either the same size square feet or even slightly bigger. So really we are seeing this trend within, I want to right size perhaps that location or the price, but not necessarily the square footage. I'm pretty happy with that. We also know that they're buying a newer property if they can, and they're planning on staying there for a long period of time. The other thing that we're seeing that I think is pretty unique is perhaps a Grace and Frankie trend. Golden Girls, they're buying as roommates, and people are embracing this, both as young buyers, but also as senior buyers. It helps with the companionship, it helps with affordability, and people are making this investment with that person. We also know that because these boomers have money, we often think of smart home features or technology features or green features as young people wanting to have these features and be invested in it, but it's also seniors, and seniors have the ability to make that purchase and have money to do so. We also know a lot of seniors want to age in place. So if their expectation is to live in this home for 15 years, which is their expected tenure, then they may want to have all the bells and whistles, like being able to tell a technology device to turn on the lights, to make it safe to go to the restroom. Having that ability to do so just makes one less thing that you could trip over in the middle of the night just a little easier. The other thing that I think is really important when we talk about senior buyers is to also look at multi-generational buying. It's up. We're seeing it 14% today. The most likely generations to be doing this are Gen Xers, but it's also older boomers. And so we're seeing that these buyers are doing so for different reasons. It could be that that older buyer is living within that home and they're financially contributing to the mortgage, and perhaps they're working part-time when they're still in the workforce. They also could be actually doing childcare for perhaps that parent, and then we can also see elder care could be at play here too. So all of these factors, but the main motivation for purchasing a multi-generational home today is actually for aging parents within that home. So all of those different scenarios could be happening, but certainly this is a trend that seems quite sticky coming out of the pandemic. I've covered a lot of ground, and I want to leave a couple minutes for questions here, but just a couple more slides here. The agent role is very consistent. Nearly 9 in 10 buyers are using agents today. Repeat buyers are also using agents. And I think what's really important here is that as a repeat buyer, they may not have done this in the last decade. That's the typical tenure in home is 10 years. So as they're going into this process, we know the real estate market is quite different than it was 10 years ago. And so they really are a first-time buyer as well. And they need your help. Finding that right home, help with negotiation as well. On the selling side, 9 in 10 using a seller's agent. They want to sell within a specific time frame, price that home competitively, find that qualified buyer. What has been moving up has been, how do I stage my home? How do I make it attractive to buyers? How do I fix up my home for sale? That's been moving up in the list of the pick list of what you need from your agent out there. So keeping that in mind as well, that as people binge watch a lot of HGTV, they're starting to get it, and they really do want your help there as well. All right. And the last one that I'll give you is that I have to say that real estate is such a huge driver of the economy. It is incredibly important. And so as you're going about your day and you're talking about this and doing your work, do know that for every home that's sold, it's actually adding more than 100,000 to your local economy as well. Because it's not just that home that's sold, it's all the bells and whistles. It's the new furnishings within that home. It's the moving truck that comes. It's everyone who's involved in that process. So thank you for what you do. You truly are making a difference to the local economy of your state. All right, I will stop sharing, but I'm happy to take any questions that you may have.
Does anybody have any burning questions? We have a couple minutes. I can try to translate them through the mic here. Nobody? That report that you just saw on the screen, the last one, we do have the PDF that we can share. You can also find it on the Realtor website. That's awkward now. So any questions? Yeah.
How about the impact on the high credit score buyers have to subsidize with the higher fee to, I guess, accommodate the lower credit score purchaser? Do you foresee any high impact on that?
Yeah, any extra fees that are added right now are definitely going to make the process more difficult, especially as we know that rates have hit the credit box as well of consumers, and that's really making it difficult to make that trade right now. I do appreciate that there's been a lot of analysis on this last week, and that our advocacy team is all over it. So I know that's one of the many things that they'll be talking about in the next week at the Realtor legislative meeting, is just how we are looking at these fees and what we can do about them as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? All righty, Dr. Louts, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you.
All right, sorry, you got to see me in two directions now. Let me just switch here. All right. So next up, no, this is not on now. Give me a second. So next up, I'm pleased to welcome Owen Tyler. This might, there's something, it's too close. Owen, it's honored to have you here today. Owen comes from us from South Carolina this morning, and Owen is the chair of the RPAC Trustees Fundraising Committee for the National Association of Realtors. And feel free to take it away from there.
So I'll create more mic drama being 5'4", maybe 5'3", any lower inches, or I can just yell. Thank you all for being here today. Like all of you in here, I run an office as well. And it is a struggle on many occasions to figure out a way to engage our realtors and even our non-realtors that may be sitting in our offices on why it's so important that they be involved in their community. And I think if you look at the basis of that, that's what Realtor Party is about. Yeah, we're advocating at the national level at NAR. You have your local association advocating in your town council meetings and your county council meetings, and you have your state advocacy group working in the state house. But every dollar that you invest and every dollar that your realtor invests, it's a trickle-down effect. We need that money and we need that influence. And so a lot of these meetings, I'm kind of preaching to the choir. You've been in it and many times forever. Many of you were first investors in RPAC. You'll notice that we used to say contributors, now you're investors. So that's a 20-year change or 30-year change. The reality is that it has grown to the largest lobbying organization, advocacy PAC in North America. This year, our budget is a little over 50 million. And that 50 million is at a national, state, and a local level. I think y'all are at 77% of your fundraising budget so far this year, which is absolutely fantastic. And all of that money is so important because the things that you are struggling with are the things that other people are struggling with in other parts of the country. There's a state that just tried to ban short-term rentals within their entire state. The bill failed, but the bill didn't fail until this week after it was introduced in January. And it took that long for that state's lobbying efforts to do that. And what did that require? That required grant assistance from the National Association of Realtors so that they had the ability at that state level to pull in data so that they could prove to the senators that had introduced the bill and those that said, yeah, but I'm more concerned about quality of life. And quality of life really is a realtor agenda. We're all about selling a community, whether you're a residential agent or commercial agent, you're building a stronger community. And the one thing that we know as a whole is that stronger communities are built by ownership. That's not just ownership of a home, that's ownership of investment property. I think we've heard on 2 occasions, I've heard 2 things in here that are directly related to RPAC. The first, we just heard about the change in credit score and fees. That's an expensive process to overturn. NAR is currently working with House members in an attempt to clarify and change. These are things that slip under the radar, things that change overnight and dramatically affect not just you're important, but they affect our consumer base. They're affecting the millions of people. I think we have an estimate of 1.2 million people in the United States are locked out of homeownership. I think we can all agree not everybody should be a homeowner. You don't define the American dream as homeownership. I know we've all been taught that that's the American dream. That is not the American dream. We should be defining the American dream of being housed with a roof over our head that's clean, safe, and warm. But there are 1.5 million people who are trying to buy a home that can't buy a home because of lack of inventory across the country. We just heard that we're leveling on inventory. Those are spot numbers. And in your area, I think you're still seeing a lack of inventory. In my area, we have no inventory, none. And so when people want to buy and it's not there, you need incentives. You need to incentivize builders. You need to incentivize renovators. You need to incentivize buyers. And all of that money and all of that lobbying effort comes directly from the National Association of Realtors, leading other organizations that are great, like your Chamber of Commerce, your National Home Builders, your American Association of Mortgage Bankers. All of those are great organizations, but they don't have the millions of members backing them and the $50 million of investment made by their direct membership. So every dollar that you give, So a lot of people say, well, what can we do in our offices? I think we all are probably here for primarily the same reason, that you get the phone call from someone who is experienced to a new agent, or you're taken by the hand and say, this is what's important. This is why your business is important. This is why in some communities you can't have a sign in a yard to sell a house, and how that dramatically affects you. And that affects the seller. Because when someone rides through a community looking for a home and they can't see a sign, they don't know it's for sale, and maybe they're uncomfortable picking up that phone, calling that realtor. It just happens. That stalls that. The other thing I heard about in here this morning was incentives for downtown revitalization. NAR led the way with Senator Tim Scott from South Carolina, actually. They created infrastructure tax credit to revitalize depressed areas. We all know that in a depressed area, bad things happen. It's just the way it is. And so when we incentivize people to come in at all different levels, whether it's a small mom and pop store or a large apartment complex, whatever the area deems through that zoning law, hopefully you're investing in RPAC and you're making a difference at the local level on what those zoning laws and impact fees are. There's a fine line, and I live in what's called a living museum. For those of you who know about Charleston, South Carolina, we live in things that are falling down around us. We can't tear anything down, nothing down. Our historic way works not by year built, but by how many years is it back. So, for example, now at a 30 to 40-year-old home, we're starting to see that in some overlay districts of historic and considering 80s architecture important. For those of you who know about 80s architecture, I think it's probably the least important decade of architecture that there was. But those are the types of things that your investment, your RPAC dollars do. And when you take that new agent, or even that agent who doesn't understand why they're in business, and you explain that background, it makes a difference in their lives. And it makes a difference in the lives of their children who will struggle to buy homes, or their parents who are actually trying to downsize. I know we hear a lot of people aren't downsizing. I'm not sure that that's 100% true in many of our communities. I think, again, a national stat that we're running off of, you have to be able to make an investment in your community. And the best way to make that investment is through your investment in RPAC. The other thing that's really, really important is just participation. And Realtor Party talks a lot about running for office. You will find many, many realtors that are in political office, governors, senators, and through the Realtor Party, you can learn about going in that. And so if you have someone in your office or you're interested in it, reach out to your local or state association and talk about how you can become effective in getting on that city council or getting on that county council. A lot of people bitch and moan, complain about what goes on in Washington, D.C. Y'all are really close. Y'all have a front seat view of a lot of it. But complain about what goes on in Washington, D.C. And I don't want to sound cavalier, but you should have been complaining 10 years ago when they were elected to your town council. And so if we get involved in our local politics and we become active locally, then we kind of can cut through some of the bullshit that goes through. Sure, people change, people become jaded and all of those great things, but complaining today about that elected official, we're just too late. We can use investment dollars to gain influence and have conversations and do all types of grants that you're all familiar with, and independent expenditures to help candidates who are realtor friendly. And realtor friendly candidates are for the economy. Real estate in most communities is the number one economic driver that there is. And so the role that each of you play and the role that each of your offices play, no matter how it appears, is huge within that community. And so as leaders in your offices, you become leaders in the community, and your agents thereby, just by having the realtor R, or just by selling property, or just by saying that they're a realtor, become the experts of the community. There are all kinds of different levels of giving and investment in the realtor organization. I think you probably are all dramatically familiar with them. $15 gets you in the door. We hope that everyone will participate at a $15 level. You may think, well, $15 doesn't do much, but $15 with 4,000 people does a pretty good bit. We need more from y'all than $15 for 4,000 people. I want to clarify. Major investors, as a major investor, okay, so you get benefits. If you're doing it for the benefit, you're doing it for the wrong reason. The benefit should be the fact that your home isn't getting foreclosed, that you're taking lavish vacations, that you're living wonderful lives because you have someone out there advocating on your behalf. That should be your benefit, not a newsletter or not a hotel preference or a cocktail party or a pin. Those are all great things. And those certainly help sell it. And I've never met a realtor that didn't love a free buffet and an open bar. But that should not be your primary reason. Your primary reason for being that major investor and giving that RPAC dollar should be very, very simple: to sustain your career. And in the long run, by sustaining your career, you're ensuring that other people who want to buy or who want to invest in property have that opportunity to do so. With interest rate increases, you are seeing, and we are seeing, a change in the buyer demographic and the ability to do that. We're also seeing a change in housing prices, with prices in many areas still escalating, interest rates still increasing. We just had a Fed rate increase. While that's an indirect effect on our mortgage rates, we can expect that to create another issue. Lawrence Yun issued a statement, I think last night. This morning I got an email about Fed interest rate increases. And so all of these things make dramatic effects, and you need an advocate. And that's what NAR does. That's what your state lobbying team does. And that's what your local associations do. They act as your advocate, because at the very basic level, if you can't sell a property, if impact fees are too high, if you can't put a sign up, if you are having a down zoning of zoning in an area, and if you can't reach an agreement with conservation easements and conservation, and if you can't, as a realtor, understand that people probably move to your area for some non-industry reason, in many cases, for the beach or the green space or the clean air or the good water, we can't develop everything. And so we've got to reach those moderations. And that's what National Association of Realtors does. There's another really great thing that there's nothing in writing about anywhere. And when I say this, people kind of laugh and say, oh, he's full of shit. I'm not. There's nothing in writing anywhere about President's Circle. And I don't know why. We've never had anything in writing about President's Circle. So President's Circle allows you to make an investment once you're a major investor. And with President's Circle, you're actually able to impact races across the country. So depending on what your political affiliation is, of course, the Realtor Party is, we're nonpartisan, we're not Republican, we're not Democrat. It was almost an even 50-50 split last year. Now, some states appear very one or the other because that's how the direction of those states go. But nationally, it was almost an even 50-50 split. I think it was like a 1/10 of a percentage point in favor of one party over the other. And so with President's Circle, you're able to make an impact in a race across the country. So if you're a diehard member of the Turtle Party, and in your community, the Turtle Party never wins, it's all whale party, and you feel like you're being eaten alive by the whale because you're a turtle, you can make an investment as a President's Circle member. And then on a quarterly basis, NAR will issue realtor-friendly elected officials at the national level in different states. Those are people who have made an impact by serving on the finance committee or different housing committee, all types of different things, senators and House members. And there will be some people who are Turtle Party and some people who are Whale Party. And the really kind of wild thing about this is you make a direct investment to that turtle candidate in Illinois. you're making a direct impact in their candidacy for their office to maintain. And that's a great way to be involved in other states and to make an impact. Many times I hear, and I travel pretty much every other week for the realtors. And so I kind of chuckle when we talk about running out of time in here. There's never enough time, no matter where you go. But sometimes you go to a community and I get pulled aside and they say, hey, so the realtors gave money to so-and-so. And so is a X, Y, a Z, and a this. And I say, wow, that's a lot. The reality is that so-and-so might not be that. So-and-so just doesn't support your social issues or the same moral mindset that you have. They support a different type of that. The realtors have invested that money with so-and-so because so-and-so has proven to support one thing: your business, property rights, home ownership, investment in your community. I get it. I'm from South Carolina. I don't know if you know much about South Carolina or if you know much about our politicians in South Carolina, but they say a lot of really crazy stuff. And during a campaign, they say even crazier stuff. You would think that that's when they would like rail it in and maybe cap the crazy, but no, then we just go nuts. And so in many occasions, we've given money as a realtor organization to someone, and then 3 days later, they say something batshit crazy, and you're like, whoa, can I get my check back? But the reality is that that person has been beneficial and instrumental in ensuring that we all have a career and a profession. So I might not want to support anyone with my realtor dollar, technically, in my state. So as a President Circle member, I'm able to find people who are realtor friendly, pro-investment, and support the same social issues I do. Because all I have to do is Google who they are. And I can make an impact in a race in another community. And that's a really great tool that exists with us. And you won't find that in a lot of associations. And that's why the Realtor Association and the Realtor Party is so well respected, and so depends on your investment. So I'm sure I'm not supposed to ask money at this event, but I ask for money everywhere I go because I have a budget I have to meet, because all of your states give out so much money, which is a good thing. So if you haven't made your investment as a major investor, and if you have never heard of President Circle, I am happy to talk with you about it. There's a wonderful trip that comes along with President Circle every year. That was in Mexico in last week of February, beginning of March. We'll be in Miami in 2024. We've been in the Bahamas the year before Mexico, Palm Springs, and the Realtor organization flies in some amazing speakers in a small, if you will, a small, more intimate venue, not like rallies or anything like that, but we've heard first ladies, ambassadors, former presidents, sitting presidents. It's a really amazing event. And so I highly recommend it, even if you're not a political person. And I always said I wasn't a political person, so I'm not sure how I ended up doing what I'm doing now. But if you're not a political person, it's still a really cool thing to do and a really cool thing to hear their perspective, because it's less about politics and more about the state of the world that we all kind of live in. And we're all kind of citizens of the same world, even if you're from Delaware and I'm from South Carolina. Is there any questions that I can answer from anybody about Realtor Party or anything that is kind of going on? I might have to say, no, I'm sorry, I can't talk about that, but I'm more than happy to give it a wing. Well, thank you for having me. Interestingly enough, I fly a lot. I always try to think on the plane. What's something that I have in common with Delaware from South Carolina? Well, we're all coastal cities, and I was on the phone with a friend of mine who's an attorney. And so, this is going to sound nutty as shit because attorneys are always slightly crazy. And he said, no offense to the attorney, but you may love this fact. He was like, oh my God. He was like, you're in Delaware? And I was like, yeah. He's like, what's cool about Delaware? And I said, no, what? And he said, Delaware is one of 5 states that only touches 2 other states, and South Carolina is one as well. And I was like, yeah, I'm sure they'll find that really cool. But I'm happy to hear that y'all found it as interesting as I did. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Owen, for that. I don't think I realized that Delaware and South Carolina were two states that only touched two other states. Just never really thought about that. But thank you very much for that. RPAC is near and dear to our heart. As you're about to hear in a little bit, George Thomason is going to give a legislative update. Just a lot of things that are going on right now at Legislative Hall. And your investment into RPAC is what helps us be able to get with the legislators, to draft bills, introduce bills, get them passed, oppose bills when we have to, negotiate bills when we have to. And you'll know that there's a lot of things we're talking about right now. The transfer tax is probably one of the biggest issues in our state, getting that back to 3%. And we're working on that. We have a good bill that is being negotiated. So DAR has a goal this year of raising $108,200 in RPAC investments. And as Owen said, we are at 77% of that goal right now. So far we have $84,129 that's been invested into RPAC. And we have a participation rate goal of 37%. We have a goal of 45 major investors. DAR currently has 23 major investors. A major investor is somebody that invests $1,000 in a year's time. And we have a goal of 5 President Circle members. DAR currently has 4 President Circle members. So we have a little bit of room to make up. And Owen, I know you said you didn't want to ask for money. Scott Farnan is our DELPAC chair this year. And so Scott, I'm not going to put him on the spot. I'm not going to ask him to come up here and do a pitch like he does at our board of directors meetings. I think he raised, what did you raise? $7,000 in one meeting? Yeah. Something like that was pretty fantastic. It was a great goal. But yes, please get with Scott, get with Jamie, get with Wes, me, if you are willing to invest into RPAC. This is also one of our stewardships. You know, our communities that we work in, we love, we serve, and the families that live in them. So thank you. Not yet. Okay. Wes said I'm going to know when this next speaker comes up. Okay. Not sure what we should talk about for a couple minutes.
Get Scott to stand up and bring
Scott, let's do it. Let's do it.
Well, who is a major investor? I think it's always a good thing to know, like, who your major investors are. And it's also important to know what motivates that major investor. So what motivates you as a major investor?
I'm on the other policy committees and I see all that garbage that comes on. So I know that money helps in having some serious conversations that need to be had.
And how hard was it to make the first major investment?
It was like, why am I doing this? But okay. And so now I have been for, I think it was like 12 years or something like that.
It's painful. It's awful to become a major investor.
Well, you can do it a monthly.
You can do it, but once you do it, you forget about it. And then you do it. Just use a credit card. And I can take everybody's running in. This is what I'll go say. So is there anyone who is President Circle in here other than you? I see. Are you not president? Oh my God. Well, Gail is, okay. Anybody else in the room? Okay, Gail, what do you love about President?
So I see it and what we're involved in with President Circle and having it at a federal level, I mean, that's the key, is exactly what Owen talked about. And that is why I'm President Circle. I know you weren't listening, Owen, why?
She said because of the trip.
But I think, so again, advocacy, exactly at the federal level, and you have a say, just like you do if you're giving $15 for whatever major investors way to go. I started that, way back when, that wanted to, and then you just write the check as your give that a credit card, credit cards, whatever, but you don't see it, but you feel it by when your candidates are doing something for home ownership, and that's the important part of it.
Listen, if you don't believe that the struggles that we have don't develop in meetings just like us, then you're living in a Pollyanna world. So everyone has an association. Every state treasurer has this treasurer's association. Every assessor at your local county has that. They go to meetings and someone says, hey, I'm from BFE, Missouri, and we had a problem with such and such. And I think that it would help you raise tax dollars or make a change in your community by doing that. Completely unvetted, may never work in Dover, Delaware, may never work in Wilmington, Delaware, may never work in Charleston, South Carolina. But someone comes back and says, what do we want? We like to make change. People like to make change. They say, let's make this change. And they start making those changes, unvetted. No one's ever looked at. Your local realtor staff, your state realtor staff, your national realtor staff can come in, assuming we have the money, and say, we're not against the change, but we want to vet the change. What does this change do? When we go and say, hey, we're going to increase impact, water impact fees, and this happened in another community, and we're going to say it's $100,000 per bathroom to build a commercial building. Okay. And a daycare center wants to come in, is going to subsidize low-income families. And a daycare center is required to have X number of bathrooms per people. And suddenly the daycare center needs 7 bathrooms. That's a $700,000 impact fee to serve low-income families that need daycares. What happens? The daycare facility walls. They can't afford it. They can't get a state grant. They can't get federal grant. They can't afford to do it. So suddenly we've now lost a really important part that builds a stronger community because of that. All of these things begin somewhere. And what the Realtor Party is there to do is not necessarily to stop it, but to vet it, to work through it and find that compromise. That is what we do all day. That's what I heard earlier today, is we're all about the compromise. And that's how you should think about this. It's all about the compromise. And without that investment and without that ability to compromise, we lose our ability to kind of work through all the process. I'll stop.
I texted Chrissy a couple minutes ago. I'm like, Chrissy, you need to fill some time here real quick. So thank you, Chrissy. I am very pleased to welcome our next guest. We do a lot of work with the Delaware State Housing Authority. We have sponsored events from time to time. We always try to share the information that they put out. Recently, and you're probably going to hear about it more in June, but the Delaware State Housing Authority is getting a lot of money, a lot of it coming from the COVID relief money to do a lot of different projects. And I thought it was very relevant that all of you hear some of the programming that they are rolling out and have been rolling out, because it is very relevant to affordable housing here in Delaware. I think all of you can take this back to your agent, all this information back to your agents, share and hopefully utilize throughout the communities. So with that, I'd like to welcome Director Eugene Young of the Delaware State Housing Authority. Director Young has been doing it now for a couple of years, but he recently then served as president and CEO of the Metropolitan Wilmington League, and he also founded the grassroots organizing group Network Delaware. So please welcome Director Young.
All right. Bring up just a hair, right? Just a hair. Let's come back down. All right. Good morning. How are we all today? That's not good enough. You guys are amazing. You guys are realtors. You get stuff done. You work day in and day out. To do what I think is one of the most important things for our community is put people in homes. So let's start that one more time. Good morning, everyone. All right, we're just gonna put this thing down. I have the pleasure of being with you all today. I am truly honored. Thank Wes, thank Chrissy, just for this opportunity to speak with you all. I'm going to give you, let's do this. Let's go over our agenda. So I will give you a little bit about the Delaware State, a little bit about me, so you just don't have like, who's this weird guy standing in front of us talking. Little bit about DSHA. We'll talk about the climate of where we are just in housing in our state in general. And then we'll talk a little bit about what we're going to do about it. Is that cool with everyone?
Yeah.
Oh, Andy Taylor. Hey, Andy. Oh, good seeing you. No, absolutely. Always good to see you. So is everyone cool with the agenda?
Yeah.
Good, because I was going to do it anyway. So good. So a couple quick things. Andy Taylor's such a gem. Oh man. So yes, he is. So let me give you a little bit about my background, and then we'll go into like why Andy is like such a gem. So I had when I graduated from college, I graduated with 2 degrees. One was in information systems, the other was in sociology, right? And when I graduated, I had these double majors. I didn't know what the hell I was going to do with myself. I finished in December, and it's interesting, like within 30 days, I was at the Newcastle County Board of Realtors, and I was getting my real estate license. That's how I met Andy in 2005. And so I was at NCCBOR, and I had Andy was my law teacher. I had Vincent White he ran our class, as I love Vincent, as cantankerous as he can be sometimes. See, here the laughs go there. Yeah, we know Vincent too. Love Vincent. And we had there was a woman named, Andy, you may remember her name, Marty. Was there a Marty from Keller Williams? She loved animals. Oh my goodness, look, this is a reunion. This is a reunion. Yes, you loved animals. And yeah, she still does. She still does. This is amazing. See, look, I am so, look, this is this is so Delaware, y'all. It is absolutely Delaware. And while there I had, as you can see, some amazing people that gave a lot of their time, their talent, and their energy to a class of us. And it was that kind of like started me out. So I got my real estate license. So I worked with Vince and some others over at the Village of Eastlake. And I used to screen people that came in working on their applications so that they're able to move into this new affordable housing home ownership opportunity over at the Village of Eastlake. It's crazy when you think about it now that they were actually selling homes it was like starting out at 87.5, right? 3-bedroom, 80 with the one-car garage, 87.5. Like, take me back to those days, right? It was amazing. It was an amazing opportunity, and I got to work with many other realtors. I ended up working then into like the nonprofit space, the government space, back to nonprofit, back to government, back and forth. And along this kind of road, it's really stressed on how important, it really has touched me how important housing is. And so here at Delaware State Housing Authority, just to give you just an understanding of like what it is, what the hell it is we do, we are one of 5 housing authorities in the state. There's Newark, Wilmington, Newcastle, Dover, and the Delaware State Housing Authority. All right. We all are we all are autonomous. So many people call me and say, hey man, I'm tired of this housing authority. We need you to do. I don't have any authority over any other housing authority, right? We're all autonomous. They have their boards. I have a council. The difference is we all, out of all of them, ours is probably the larger of shops. We also, within the Delaware State Housing Authority, we do community development, and we also have a housing finance agency within our office as well. And we are the conduit or the flow through for federal tax credits. So those three things make us unique outside of the other four agencies. We all have units. The city of Wilmington probably has the most. They probably have close to 2,000 brick and mortar units. They probably give out around 1,400 vouchers. Newcastle, Kerry Casey and those guys, they don't have any brick and mortar units. They just do 1,400, probably around 1,400 vouchers. Rufus in Dover does probably around 200. He has around 200 some brick and mortar units, 1,000 vouchers. We have 600 units, and we do provide around 1,400 vouchers. Our units span from our most furthest north is Peach Square, Holly Circle in Middletown, going all the way down to the very bottom of the state, down in Selby. We have units that are in Lewis. We have units that you can go there, and Lewis. This is when before Lewis was Lewis, right? And so we have units that you can go there and you can smell. You know what I'm saying? When you smell the ocean, kind of thing. And so we get random people that stop by, sometimes intoxicated, that just think that we're a hotel or just need a place to bum and crash. Typical beach stuff, but. We provide these units in order to meet the needs of our community. As I said before, our housing finance agency, which is, I have my number one and number two. Can you guys please stand up, please? Brian and Megan. Brian, you're kind of you can't see. There you go. Oh, you guys stand up. Brian and Megan. They run the show for our housing finance agency. Don't go anywhere just yet. Most people don't know this about DSHA, and this one also makes us different and unique from the others. In our housing finance agency, we actually provide, last year we did around 350 million in mortgages. We did around 5 or 6 million, Brian, in down payment assistance. 9 million, even better. 9 million in down payment assistance. So if you have, and we're pretty much at rate, if not slightly lower. And so if you have questions around anything around our loan product, things of that nature, oftentimes people just think that we work with first-time home buyers. While we do, for the most part, work with a lot of first-time home buyers, we work with others as well. And so I just want to make sure we're able to introduce you to Brian and Megan. Megan just started like 3 weeks ago, it feels like. Thank God she's still here. She hasn't left us yet, so we must be doing something right. But if you could please give a round of applause for them, because it's such a big job, right? All right, so we did the Eugene part, and then I found out that this was going to be a reunion of sorts. Then we did a little bit about DSHA. Any quick questions about DSHA before we move on from that? Any quick questions? No questions, bad questions. I'm family. I'm former realtor. Like, I'm one of you guys, sort of a little bit. Okay. So now let's move on to just talk housing. Our state is in a rough spot when it comes to housing. Our country is in a rough spot when it comes to housing. Our country is behind, many people will say, around 4 million units. Our state of Delaware, if you were to go to the National Low Income Housing Coalition, just Google it, National Low Income Housing Coalition, it would say that Delaware is behind, they give numbers for every state, it says Delaware is behind 18 to 21,000 units. Just to give an idea, that would be similar to the town of Bear, right? Or the city of Bear. We do not have enough units to meet the needs of the people that we have coming in here. And this comes from a couple different things. We have not, and this is something that's more long-term, we have not met the needs over the last, I would say, 40, 50 years of, really focusing, honing in on housing. And now, and it's not just us, it's our surrounding states as well. Now the light has been shined on us because of COVID, and you can see it everywhere you go, right? But it also is because of the fact that, I say this as a 4th generation Delawarean, We are the bomb. Delaware is amazing. Everybody wants to be in Delaware. And it's weird for me to say that as a Delawarean, like I'm like, huh? Come here? Huh? What? But we have, per capita, we have more people moving here than any other state in our region. Period, point blank. If you go Google Forbes magazine's, top importers, top exporters, we're in the top 10 in the country when it comes to people moving in. The only other state in our kind of somewhat neighborhood is you have to go all the way up to Maine. But we have a lot of people moving in here by the droves. So that's one of the reasons we have so many more people coming in. And then also, we didn't have as much, many of the units needs before, but then compounding on top of that is the fact that we have only, for a long time now, we've only made one type of house in our state. For the most part. Any idea what that type of house is?
Single family?
Single family detached. 60% of all homes in the state of Delaware are single family detached. If you want to even get more specific, I would say that between Kent and Sussex County, you're looking around 80% single family detached. So then the question becomes, well, what the hell does that mean for the kid that graduates from college and comes back home that, many of you don't want back on your couch, right? Because you've already put your office in their bedroom. Or what does that mean for the professional that comes in that wants to provide said services that wants to be a nurse over at the local healthcare center? So what happens is it's this real tightness of our market right now. And I know you all witness it just day in and day out. It's an enormous tightness. And our job at the Delaware State Housing Authority is to focus on what can we do in order to meet the need, right? Essentially, like, as many of you are thinking in your heads, well, what the hell are you going to do, right? People laughing because they were thinking it. So we are at a point right now at our state where our governor, my boss has realized, like, this is something that we cannot play around with anymore. We have made, and I'm not saying this because I work for him, I'm just saying it because it's real. Governor Carney has made the largest investment of housing ever in our state, over $122 million. And a lot of that, around 30 million, is going to direct projects that focus on getting more, providing affordable units, quality units up and down our state, from housing for poultry farm workers in Sussex, land bank with NCall, that focuses on Kent and Sussex to be able to ascertain properties or land that can end up being properties and moving forward for large scale development. Different projects in Newcastle County, just a wide span of money to different projects. So that's around 32 million. Then there's another 90 million that is going to go to a variety of different areas. One is just focused around affordable rental, which is a big issue right now in our state. We just do not have, in particular in areas of Sussex and Kent, we don't have enough rentals to meet the needs. And in particular, we only have them in one side of Sussex, and that's the western side. We don't have any on the eastern side. And so what we're starting to see right now is we're having this huge issue where it's so much of a commute to go from that west to the eastern side. You got businesses on the eastern side that are saying, look, I can't have anyone that's able to be a cook, a waitress, waiter, so on and so forth, right? And so we're trying to focus on making sure that we're getting quality housing throughout, availability of quality housing throughout the state, and being able to get those units available. So we're focusing on that aspect. Another program that we're doing, we call that the Accelerator. Another fund that we have is called the Catalyst Fund. and this is where you all may actually see some type of connection with this. One of the big issues that we run into in our state, particularly in some of our city centers, Dover, Wilmington, is the fact that we have tons of dilapidated homes that are at disarray, disrepair, that we haven't been able to do a damn thing with for years, 5, 10, 15 years. I've toured many areas. It's not just Wilmington, Dover, it's in areas of Newcastle as well. And so what we're going to do is, just to I'll give an example. You're a developer, you see a home that's in disarray, disrepair, you put $50,000 in, you purchase that home, right? Put $50,000 in, then you put another $100,000 in. So until you have $150,000 in said home for the purchase of the unit and then for the renovation of. It's beautiful now, it's amazing, bells, whistles, the whole nine. But the neighborhood in which you're purchasing it, and now that you're trying to sell it at, you can only get $100,000, right? What we will do, we're working with Scenair, what we will do is we will cover that appraisal gap. So we'll cover the $50,000. So we'll cover that $50,000 and we'll give the developer a developer's fee of up to capping at around $20,000. So this allows us to do two amazing things, right? One is it allows us to put a homeowner in this place, right? Because one of the biggest issues that we have right now in certain areas of our state is we have home ownership deserts. Absolute home ownership deserts. No homeowner around. And so we go through this churn of people in, people out, too transient, not enough people being tied in, connected to the community, and you get all the issues that come with it, right? So this provides an opportunity to focus on like one house at a time. We will allow you to do up to 5 houses at a given setting. So this provides certainly an opportunity for you all as realtors to know people that are doing this kind of work. This may be certainly an opportunity. Again, it's called the Catalyst Fund. We open up the application on May 15th. May 15th, we open up the applications for this fund. We are putting $20 million to this project. You have a question?
I do.
Amazing, shoot.
So that gap up to 50,000?
Yeah.
Is that a grant or is that a loan that's going to be back?
So the way it will work is you'll work with us in Scenair. It'll be a construction loan. So when the person buys that 50, they buy the unit and then they buy the 50,000 and 100,000, look at the construction loan, wrapping all that in together. You with me so far?
I'm not talking about.
No, I'm just float with me for a second. I'm gonna answer. Okay, I understand. That's my wife says I'm not with you on this one, so I
might catch up.
Yeah, no, it's not gonna catch up. We're gonna do it together. So the way it will work is you will get a construction loan for the entire project, right? And so what happens at sale, we will then cover it, and the only tack will be you will have to stay in, the homeowner will have to stay in a certain period of time to earn that equity in. Because what we don't want is speculators to then come in and just take out equity, sell it, rent it, whatever the case may be. So it's going to be a timetable. This is we have a program called Strong Neighborhoods, which has done a lot of work in Newcastle. And Old Newcastle in particular, Route 9 corridor of Newcastle. And Rosegate, Rose Hill, many of these areas. And what this has done is actually, and this is our goal, is to price ourselves out of the community, essentially. So essentially you take enough of these dilapidated homes and disarray homes and put homeowners in, that home for $50,000 that you were once able to buy, now is going to be $100,000. Or it'll start taking us out of business. And that's essentially the goal, because the homes in that area where the belief is, as we've seen with some of our recent success, those homes will begin to appreciate. Does that make sense?
Is there like a neighborhood stabilization program
Kind of, sort of, big.
and retention period and all?
Yes, there will be a retention period, and we're working on final details. If you just Google, excuse me, Delaware State Housing Authority Catalyst Fund, we just had a stakeholders meeting. We had 200 people on just learning about this program, and they'll give even specific details because the gap even goes up. I use 50,000, but it goes up to I think it's 100,000.
Right, so what I was saying, so you say you bought down for 50, you put up a bid, that's 150. You sell it for 200, it's a $50,000 gap. That's what I'm asking about. That $50,000 gap, is that falling on the buyer? And is it a grant, or you're saying 50,000 going to construction? I'm talking about the gap on appraisal, because you said appraisal.
Appraisal gap. So it normally will go the reverse way. You're going up to 200, most of them will go down because there's not enough. In most of those neighborhoods, you're not going to find the appraisal that will go up, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? See, we're here. I know yeah, no, you depend on me, brother. We're on the same, we're in this side by side. So that is the situation with our Catalyst Fund. We're using this as an opportunity to get more homeowners in housing. This is so important. We've been working a lot with Habitat for Humanity, and we're trying to expand this program out so that we're able to do even more work and bring more people involved. So that's where a large portion of our funds are going. Outside of the affordable rental, like large scale development projects that we're focusing on, like 70 units, 60 units, affordable rentals all throughout the state. Another program that we're focusing in, we're creating a pilot, is around rent reporting. So I think we're going to do up to 500 people right now. We just put some money to this. But a major issue, as you all know, is you can be renting a space and not a dollar of the good money that you've been putting to rent said location goes to your credit report. And so we're working with a group to have your, as you put money, as you pay monthly and you pay on time, that will be able, we're working with a group to make sure this goes to your credit score. So this rent reporting pilot, we're doing around 400 to 500 people right now, but our goal is to make sure that we're able to, what we can do between over the next 6 to 12 months to be able to show that if someone's paying monthly and this is something that they're doing because they may not have any other ways to build credit, this could be a win for them. And for their families. And the good part is they do not report any missed payments. They only report the good stuff you did. So if you miss the payment, they just won't, they will not report anything. They don't ding you for it. So if you do the right thing, you're going to win. If you don't do the right thing, you're just not going to get anything. You're not going to get anything out of it. So this is a pilot that we're working on right now and that we'd like to see expanded. And third, where I think that there may be some interest here is around, how can I forget? So I charged Brian and Megan back there with the amazing task, not just a task, this is an amazing task of we need to get out more money as down payment assistance. And so we are going to be very aggressive on DPA moving forward. I'm probably speaking well out of turn, and Brian's probably like, shut the hell up. But I'm going to give a lift. I'm just going to give you what we're thinking about. Is that fair, Brian? There you go. Brian, he said, what you're thinking about. So we're thinking about putting at least $4 million, I'm thinking maybe like 5, into down payment assistance. In particular, having it focus on, we may have 2 different, we talked about this, was it yesterday, Brian? Yesterday? Yeah, yesterday, something like that. We talked about how we're going to maybe do something for those who work in our government workers, or, you know, first responders, EMT, police, teachers, you know, we may have like 2 million or like a portion of that for government workers, or we may have another one for purchasing homes in certain areas. You'll receive down payment assistance as well, right? So maybe something for like those who are in whose line of work, maybe, you know, those who I would even like to include like daycare workers in there as well. But those who, you know, kind of doing work, good work, but still trying to find home because they're kind of priced out of our market right now because we have only these single family detached homes. Or if you want to purchase in some of these specific selected areas, we'll provide some down payment assistance. We're looking at, as I said before, between 4 to 5 million. It may be, you know, I'm probably spending another time to this, but 10 to 20. Is that fair, Brian? Or you feel 10 to 20,000 that will go and as you pay off, as you stay in the house. Our main thing is we need you to stay here. As you stay in that house, you'll be able to walk away with that money will be forgiven of some sort. So we're playing around with it, not trying to like put everything in concrete, because then you guys are gonna come back and me, or more importantly, you're probably gonna go back to Brian and say, he said, but we're in this is, and to be quite honest, this is why I appreciate coming here as well, because Brian and Megan are here, give them feedback. What you think is the best plan to do? What's the best thing for us to do? You guys are literally in these closings all the time. You are working with home buyers all the time. What do you think is the best option, best plan for us to move forward? This is a collective effort. We don't think that we have the answer to all the problems, right? So this is what we're trying to do right now around housing space and some other things, but our goal is to be as aggressive as hell to meet the need. You know, the governor put out this 122 million, but we recognize the fact that, kind of like using this housing metaphor, this is just a down payment on something that's going to have to be continuous as we move forward, regardless of who the governor is next and who the governor after that is and who the governor after that is. This is a big deal for our state. And so more importantly, we look forward to working with you all on this. We are tied together with this, regardless of where you are in the state. This is such an important issue. And I'll close by just saying this, and I'll answer any questions that you may have. I really feel like how cool it is to be here. And I can't stress that enough, because all this stuff is like cyclical. You know, we're in Delaware, we have less than 1 million people, we just crossed 1 million people. That person was probably born like 6 months ago, but like we have 1 million people in our state. We have 10 times as many chickens in our state, right? God forbid if chickens become human sized, we'd be a mess, right? But we are all tied and connected to one another. And the work that you do is about that aspect of putting people in their homes, connecting them into quality housing, helping them to build better stability for themselves and their families. Your house is pretty much one of the major determinants of you. Where you live will determine your education, the education you receive. It will determine the health care you receive. It'll determine your involvement or lack thereof with the criminal justice system in many cases. Like, where you live is almost quintessentially everything that creates you. You know, I say all the time that your roots determine your routes. Your ROOTS determine your ROUTES. And what you're all doing here is strengthening the roots of families throughout the state, and I cannot applaud you enough for it. So I thank you, and I'm here for any questions, any additional questions you may have. Thank you so much. Andy, my man.
Thank you so much for being here and sharing your knowledge with us. Suppose a realtor has a new investor client who's interested in finding out about the DSHA housing voucher program and how they can participate in that. Oh, wow. How can they learn to become or to qualify for that program?
Sure. So we are always, that is a great question. And FYI, when I met Andy. Andy had a full beard, like full, like.
I didn't shave for 26 years.
See, there you go, full beard. I mean, the whole nine. And now look at Andy. I can even actually see your face now. Look at that. I can see who you are. But I would say the best vouchers is if you have colleagues, partners, or if you yourself interested in getting people involved with the voucher program. If you are in Kent and Sussex, you would reach out to the Delaware State Housing Authority. If you just call our number and ask to speak to housing management, they will roll out the red carpet for you for getting some type of voucher, because we're all getting a voucher available for a resident. Because here's the crazy part about it. Remember how I gave you some of the numbers? I said Wilmington Housing Authority has 2,000 units, 1,400 vouchers. Newcastle, they just have vouchers. Newark is the smallest housing authority. Maureen has just 56 brick and mortar units and probably, let's say, 600 vouchers. They're about to do a great project off of Main Street, though. That's going to be amazing, FYI. And Rufus has his, and we have ours. But with that said, the other part that undergirds a lot of this is we have 600 units, brick and mortar. We have 1,400 vouchers. My list to get one of those is 12,000. 12,000 people are on our list. So there is a direct, serious need for people who want to come forward with, who want to provide that opportunity for people to use a housing voucher, because it is a lot of people. And I'm not saying this for y'all, you guys are family, realtors. I'm not saying this to you all, but I also think we need to put a lot in context as well, just about our state. We have a workforce, as I said before, we have 1 million people in our state. We have a workforce of around 450,000, right? Department of Labor statistics show from 2021, we're still waiting for 2022 numbers, but approximately 26.4% of all working Delawareans make $15 or less per hour. $15 or less per hour of the workforce. Approximately 42% make around 42% make $20 or less per hour. It's around $40,000 a year. 26.4 make between $30,000 or less per year, right? So when I talk about the need for vouchers, and here's the other part, and just to give you the other snapshot of it. So when you say like, well, who's the voucher? Who are these people? These are like, there's someone. Her name is Caitlin Gleason with the Department of Education. She is a star. She does a lot of daycare, early learning things. And if she were here in this room at this very moment, she would tell you that your average daycare worker makes between $12 and $14 an hour. High end, Bright Horizons. I know this because like my kids I know these care centers because like I have a son that's about to graduate out of daycare. Save us some money. It's like the greatest feeling in the world. But he'll be starting kindergarten. But whether it's Bright Horizons, Tutor Time, KinderCare, if at that high level, you may be getting 15. Maybe get 15. So the reason why I say that, and the reason why I'm appreciative of Andy's question is because if you have friends, colleagues, you know, that are interested in renting out, this can provide a huge opportunity to said daycare worker, to said healthcare worker. If you go to the flats in Wilmington, over 50%, close to 50% of the workers, the majority of, are Christiana Care employees. So these are opportunities to house some of these Delawareans that are working, doing a great job, but it's just right now with these rent prices going through the roof, they're kind of settling down a little bit now, but it's providing some opportunity. But thank you for that question. Yes.
Eugene, thank you so much for being here. I have two actual questions.
Sure.
Can you make the mathematical formula easier? Because I had a case where, client was qualified as far as the lender formulation. Went to the, share money to get the, deposit, another down payment and then closing costs of it.
Yeah.
However, the housing counselor's formula was wrong. And then director who was the, department was wrong. So they got declined.
Okay.
So, I was on the call with them, and
Okay.
then every single person had a different formula.
Okay.
To arrive. So what I'm saying is, we say we want to have affordable housing, and then all those kind of advocacy. However, the moment that they make penny more, then they will drop like they never knew you. I just think that low to a moderate income family, our calculation, whether it's the DSHA money or the DPS on any other county, should be easier because clearly 3 people have a different formula to arrive at that income level. So that's one.
Okay.
Number
Brian,
2,
you hear that one?
all here.
All right, there we go.
Number 2, why couldn't we actually, let's say they took the DSHA money for $8,000.
Okay.
Why couldn't we just have this $8,000 add up, whatever the DSHA current rate is, not the whole entire $320,000? What's the rationale on that? Now it's a competitive. I get it.
Yeah, they're competitive. And you're saying why on the whole 300,000 instead of rather
versus 8,000?
I don't know. We'll talk about it. I don't like if
like I said, it's competitive now, but historically, your rate is like 1 or 1.25 higher than rest of the current mortgage rate. It's always like that.
Okay. All right. Well, I will take the feedback. And also, as I said before, please, the stand up means you're about to shut up. All right. But I would take that feedback. Can I ask one more?
Yeah.
All right.
Danielle.
I will, and just for your question, like we can talk afterwards, but and everyone will be around. I'm not hard to find.
Are you staying for lunch?
I don't know. I'll stay for some time, but I got to go somewhere else, but I will be around. I'm not hard to find.
Yeah, 2 questions. So out of the $122 million, which is amazing that the governor is putting into the state, why is there only 4 or 5 million being put into down payment assistance?
Yeah.
Because if you break that into part, you're gonna, and you say about a $10,000, you're gonna be able to serve about 500 people.
Yeah. Well, so
maybe that can accumulate.
Yeah. So this is, as I said before, this is using the metaphor as the down payment on more things for the future.
Okay.
So that's one. But 2 is we also have to balance it out because if we don't get more units produced, then it's still the frenzy fighting party that we have right now. So we have to put a great deal of money to just getting units. The problem is the cost of getting units available is through the roof. Right now, if a low end per unit cost is around $265,000. High end, when you're dealing with disabilities, things of that nature, you're talking close to like $300,000. So that cost of us to get units available right now has skyrocketed. So it just makes us a little bit tight on that. But I'm not saying that's something we won't do. We're still going to do it.
Cool. And second question is, how are you alerting investors to be able to use vouchers?
So we actually,
is there a campaign for that?
We are creating a campaign right now for that. Because we need to be more aggressive because the list that we have of 12,000, City of Wilmington hasn't even opened theirs in the last 4 years. So like it's so tight for everyone. So we're trying to create a large campaign and we're working together to make it more easy accessible. So if you have, if you're in Wilmington and someone from Dover wants to move their voucher to Wilmington, we make it a lot more easier for that client to do so. So we want to make the experience good, but also we want to campaign as well. So we're trying to fly the plane and fix it at the same time. But those are the 2 big things that we're working on.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. And the Delaware Association of Realtors really looks forward to continuing to work with you and the Delaware State Housing Authority. So our next speaker now is our very own George Thomason. He is our president-elect. He will be our president next year. George is chairing our public policy committee, And for those of you who just told Scott that you're going to become major investors today, you're about to hear everything that you're investing in. So thank you for that.
Park that.
Mark it.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Still with me? We're gonna make that thing work. I hope. Okay, that's good enough. That's good enough. We have a lot to cover, so I'll try to do it quickly so we can get on with lunch. I'm gonna say something you may find strange. I love politics. I absolutely love politics. I should say, to clarify that, I love the art of politics. And what I love about our association, from NAR, DAR, all on down to the locals, is that when we represent our members, we do so as nonpartisans. And that's also another beautiful thing about being that, because I'm so proud of our public policy committee. They are absolutely the smartest people I've ever been in the same room with. They seem to know how to cover just about every topic. So my deficiencies, they make up for in their expertise. But anyway, so there's a lot of bills here I want to mention. So forgive me if I'm looking down at my notes. Okay.
Can I hold it for you?
Yeah, good. I can do this one-handed. The one thing about public speaking is you want to be in your comfort zone. And my comfort zone is standing behind the podium to hide this, and then giving me something to grab a hold of. So I usually like to hold on to things with two hands. But anyway, so forgive me if I'm looking down at my notes because there's a lot of bills and I want to cover a lot of stuff. So as everyone knows, our political advocacy program is a strategic initiative of the Delaware Association of Realtors. We spend a lot of volunteer and staff time tackling as many bills that get introduced during the legislative season, as well as a lot of work behind the scenes to get potential legislation stalled or eliminated before it gets introduced. We engage 2 separate lobbying firms, and we can honestly say that we have one of the largest, if not the largest, political action committees in the state. I get it. As you may know, this is year 1 or part 1 of a 2-year legislative session, and legislators have been busy to say the least. I'll be going through some of the highlights of the bills that we have been reviewing and some of our positions. So if you have questions, if you would just hold them, wait till I go through the list, and if you would want to, take notes. First and foremost, we strongly support House Bill 36, which was drafted by DAR and introduced by Representative Bill Bush to lower the state's realty transfer tax by 1%. We continue our efforts, as always, to push forward on this initiative. Particularly, our campaign was partially funded by NAR, which just wrapped up, and 25% of our members responded to the call for action. So if you have not already, please go to DelawareTransferTax.com and do so. There's also other bills that in some way impact the transfer tax. We have been monitoring those, and as we get closer to June, we may see more movement on them. DAR supports proposals to increase the senior property tax credit. That's House Bill 30 and House Bill 36. And we testified in front of the House Education Committee on behalf of those bills. We support House Bill 42 that would remove current laws that says a school property tax can be increased up to 10% after the reassessment occurs. Now here's a goodie. We've been monitoring House Bill 55, which would create a Bill of Rights for individuals experiencing homelessness. Essentially, this bill creates a homeless protected class. And there are concerns that these individuals could lawfully live anywhere on public property, including the public street in front of your house. That's good. We've been monitoring legislation that would require reassessment to reoccur every 5 years, and that would be House Bill 62. DAR is part of a coalition effort to move along bills for the Ready in 6 initiatives. Ready in 6 essentially means reforming government processes to allow a company to get a shovel in the ground within 6 months. Recently, 4 bills have been introduced on this front, and 2 of them have already made it through committee. That's House Bill 103, which would expedite the issuance of temporary entrance permits for commercial and economic development projects. House Bill 104, which would make adjustments to the PLUS process. So if you would like to learn more about those initiatives, see Wes, he has some flyers that will explain it in more detail. Now, as you know, the legislative process is a messy one. And as a professional trade association, we need to sometimes concede on initiatives that we know are going to pass, even though we may not agree. One of those bills was Senate Bill 1. Now, if you're a political observer or just a casual observer of politics, you might know that anytime they put a number 1 in front of a bill, that is their main priority. So Senate Bill number 1 was the so-called Tenants' Rights to Representation Bill. Now, while I think we all know and understand that Americans have the right to representation, but this bill essentially provides government-funded attorneys under certain income thresholds to assist them in the eviction process. We have been opposed to this concept on individual bills like it for 3 years. And we literally were in legislative hall on July 1 last year at 12:30 a.m. when the original bill was being forced to a vote, which failed because the House was being told that none of their bills would be run until they voted on that bill. Well, it failed, and the session ended right after that. But because of support from the governor and a few more progressives elected to the legislature, the bill returned. Thankfully, though some may disagree, the sponsors of the legislation sat down with us and we were able to make amendments to the bills, amendments that we requested to the bills. As a result, we took a neutral position, as did the Delaware Apartment Association, for that matter. Right now, many bills are being suggested or proposed by the Public Policy Committee, and the Public Policy Committee is on top of it. This is a problem when you read notes, it's like we're in. Just this Tuesday, our committee reviewed and recommended positions on 6 bills and 3 proposed bills. Now, one of the greatest things to having a continuous relationship with legislatures is that sometimes they do reach out to us before introducing legislation. So recently, there have been proposals to create more disclosures. Where that's at.
That's just what we need.
By multiple legislatures. For example, one had a constituent that didn't realize they needed to replace their whole sidewalk when they purchased their home, and the legislator wanted to require a new disclosure that says that they need to contact their local municipalities to learn about sidewalk requirements. Well, we stopped that. And while working on updating the seller's disclosure with the Real Estate Commission, we resolved this problem by simply adding an additional sentence to the seller's disclosure, which Andy will talk about shortly. And just this past week, another legislator shared with us that they wanted to create a disclosure to provide information on what to do when purchasing a property occupied by a tenant. And I don't want to say with 100% certainty, but we believe that we stopped that proposal as well, due to the newly updated language in the seller's disclosure that requires a bit more detail about people purchasing a rental or a property currently occupied by a renter. Now, with all that said, we've been busy this year while the legislature seems fully focused on tenants, in a way understandably so due to the lack of inventory. We continue to advocate for the prioritize homeownership, and we will continue until the last gavel swings in June. Thank you. So if you have any questions on those, Wes will help me out. Good. All right, well, thank you all. It gets better every time. Yes.
I'll watch this on. One question. Hey, how's the program going to get the public on board for the property transfer tax?
You want to talk?
Are we still
Well,
advertising and do we have?
Yeah, so yeah, great question. Wow, question. Sorry, don't mind me. I gotta get this one next going. If you go to DelawareTransferTax.com, you can go check out the whole campaign that we have launched. It tells you about the bill, HB 36, tells you about the sponsors, it tells you how to respond to the call for action. You know, big issue for us, and only a quarter of our membership responded. So I think that's a big deal, and please do whatever you can in your offices to promote the campaign. We need your help. The legislators know, and they call us immediately when the emails start flying in, because it really takes over their email accounts. So please encourage everyone you know to promote that campaign. There's a video you can share on social media, as well as a bunch of other social media ads available with that.
Sandy?
Quick question on the same bill. Where is it now in the legislature? Is it in committee or?
Yeah, so HB 36 is sitting before House Appropriations Committee. It's a budget bill, and it's kind of known it's going to stay there until June. June's really when we're going to hear what's happening on that front.
I understand the Appropriations Committee has not met yet this year at all.
The Appropriations Committee has met.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
That information.
Yeah. So we're working on it. All right.
All right. Thank you, George.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
All right. Next up, we'll get right into it. Our association attorney, Andy Taylor.
Okay, got it.
All right, pleasure to be here with you today. Do I need to use a microphone? Will it be, all right, good, I don't. He's getting me the all famous clicker, that's good. Scott set up to give me the hook, 12:45. Scott warned me I was standing between him and lunch. Thought that's not a good place to be, between Scott and lunch. So I'm here to talk with you about regulatory update and updates to the seller's disclosure form. It's a pleasure to be with you here today. Whom does Andy represent? Andy represents the Delaware Association of Realtors and Newcastle County Board of Realtors. Occasionally I get to do a special project for the Sussex County Association of Realtors. Your mind can keep up with me, don't worry, okay? Ordinarily, you only use about 40% of your brain, I think, to hear and watch. So I'm asking you to use 70%, okay? You can give me 70%, right? And we'll cover a whole lot of information now between now and 12:45 between Scott's lunch. I'm very conscious of avoiding conflicts of interest. I love representing you all. I consider myself a people person, and my observation through the decades has been if somebody lasts in the real estate profession for more than 2 years, that means you're a people person. So, and I love working with people, and I do not represent the Delaware Real Estate Commission. The Delaware Real Estate Commission is represented by the Delaware Attorney General's office. So there's a deputy AG who attends all of the commission meetings and is the advocate for the Real Estate Commission. I'm your advocate. I am very conscious of conflicts of interest. I've been offered the opportunity through the decades to represent some other types of, housing organizations, apartments, whatever, and turn that down because I don't want you ever thinking, gee, why is Andy saying this or doing this? Is it because he represents other associations or whatnot? No, I represent you all. Love working with you. Thank you so much for that opportunity. So, all right. I assume you're familiar with the revisions that were made over the past couple of years, particularly with regard to teams and educations and things like that. But I'm going to review what I see as some of the problem areas that are being brought to the attention of the Real Estate Commission. Broker responsibility. What was it, Jose? Intestinal fortitude? I got it right. Okay. Chrissy, was it guts? Is that what it was? Guts? Okay. So we got it covered. I love. That's the way of looking at it. That's terrific. This is an increased emphasis by the Real Estate Commission. Oh, by the way, why did I do DREC rather than direct? Well, some years ago, when Eric Bronstein was president, he said, Andy, do you know what direct means in Yiddish? And I said, no, Eric, I don't know. He said, well, let me give you a hint. You wouldn't want to step in it. So he says, every time you're saying direct at a meeting, he said, I'm thinking, I said, oh, that's not what I want you to think. So I tried to come up with a new acronym here of DREC for Delaware Real Estate Commission. Continuing education. They have a keen focus on continuing education. And as you know, each renewal cycle, they do an audit. And I was just aghast at the numbers this year. They said they audited 600 licensees, half no problem at all. They were whittled it down to looking at the other half. They were able to see just with some additional paperwork and whatnot. People who had complied, they were then down to about 150 to take a look at further. I was thinking, wait a minute, you're telling me 25% of the licensees you audited, you found some issues with their continuing education compliance. I mean, I was just aghast at that. So they are keenly focused on the broker's responsibility. I can tell you they're going through the audits, they're going through hearings. If one of your licensees is called to a hearing to explain why they didn't fulfill their continuing education requirement and yet tried to renew their license anyway, the broker is going to be summoned to that meeting, and the broker most likely will be fined $1,000. Now, this is said, I realize this is Andy speaking now, not the commission. I've never seen a time that it's more important for you to supervise your licensees and yet more difficult to. They're independent contractors. Many rarely come in the office, et cetera. So it's difficult. So as a broker, you must monitor your licensee's CE, co-sign CE logs, keep copies of the CE certificates for at least 3 years. It doesn't have to be paper. You can keep electronic copies. Advertising, as you know, they revised the rules, but still they're seeing a lot of violations in this area. So with the rule revisions from 2021, advertisements shall prominently display the brokerage organization name and phone number in greater size and visibility than the licensee's name. And you can include additional names and team names, phone numbers, et cetera. There are many complaints pending right now before the Real Estate Commission in the investigation unit over advertisements that still don't meet this requirement. So you need to comply with this. Otherwise, there's going to be someone will file a violation. Property management rules were updated, clarifying what a licensee must do in the rental property management area, and clarified things that can be done by an unlicensed person who is working in the broker's office. Now, I understand that there's some people who are not licensees who are looking at rules and saying, oh, there are things here that say you don't have to be done by a licensee. And they're thinking they can do those things without being a licensee, without realizing they can only be doing that, if they're employed by a broker, because they're doing those property management services, those rental services, providing those leasing management services for other people for compensation. It needs to be going through a licensee. There was no change in the rules regarding referral fees, but just to review here, obviously you may pay a referral fee to a person licensed as a broker in another jurisdiction when they refer a transaction over to you here. Obviously, you cannot let someone else practice kind of under your Delaware license, but they could obtain a reciprocal license, or we have an affiliation rule. There was a modification made to that, which I'm going to just review here briefly. An out-of-state licensee for commercial transactions may affiliate with a Delaware broker for a particular transaction. We do this to try to be pro-business and try to have, for commercial transactions, we want those out-of-state brokers and licensees to bring those possibilities of transactions here. So they modified slightly the affiliation rule for commercial transactions, which is basically anything that does not include the 1 to 4 family residential. So an out-of-state licensee may represent a potential buyer or a potential tenant for that commercial property. They don't need to be licensed in Delaware. All they need to do is affiliate with a Delaware licensee. So that out-of-state licensee could call up Bob, say, hey, could I affiliate with your company? and we'll have an affiliation agreement. There's no set form for that. It's whatever Bob wants to work out with that out-of-state licensee. And then Bob realizes, as the Delaware broker, though, he's responsible for what that out-of-state licensee does. So he's probably going to say things like, well, yes, we can have this affiliation agreement, but you're going to include me on every email. You're going to let me know when the property is being shown, and I'll go with you on that property tour. So that out-of-state, commercial real estate manager for, let's say, Kohl's, could be bringing their real estate committee here, go around with Bob. That out-of-state licensee can work here. They're going to work out a compensation arrangement then with Bob. So that the part about they really want to focus, though, you're still responsible for the actions of that out-of-state licensee. Revisions to the seller's disclosure form. The Real Estate Commission sent a letter to DAR asking for our input on the seller's disclosure form. That was last June of 2022. DAR broadcast invitation to all members to provide input. The DAR Forms Committee, chaired by Tom Burns right over there, has worked diligently since then, reviewing all of the comments that come in from members. That committee has a representation from all 3 counties in Delaware, chaired by Tom, does a great job. And so we reviewed all of those questions, all those comments from DAR members. That was very helpful to the whole process. We appreciate that input very much. And so from there, the approval process is that they approved at their April meeting the revised form. At their May meeting, they will pass a motion to establish what the effective date of the form will be. Our suggestion from DAR is to make it effective for listings that take effect June 1st or July 1st after. We want some date in the future like that. Give us a chance to get out more education to our members. We'll be publicizing to our members. It's up to the Real Estate Commission how they publicize to licensees in general. DAR, as Wes mentioned, we have the May 22nd Zoom event for the entire Forms Committee. We're breaking down the form and reviewing it on that Zoom event on May 22nd. So as Wes encouraged you, register for that event, and we'll go into it in more detail. As you know, the seller's disclosure form is required unless it's exempt by the law. It's the Buyer Property Protection Act. I just want to show you where it is in the code, because it's not in the Licensing Act governing just real estate licensees. It's in the part of the Delaware Code that covers commerce and trade in Title VI, the subchapter dealing with prohibited trade practices, and then our own little subchapter of that, subchapter 7, the Buyer Property Protection Act. Sometime ask me to tell you the story for why it's called that. I'd be happy to tell you. The Real Estate Commission has the responsibility for the forms. The forms you're currently using today were October of 2017. So it's been 5 years since then. Good time to take a look at the form, do updates for that. So, it's required for the disclosure. It's the seller's responsibility to disclose all material defects known at the time the property is offered for sale, or that are known prior to the time of final settlement, by updating the form for material changes in the property since the time they first did the form and when settlement is happening. I, for decades on your behalf, have fought against the concept of should have known. I think it's certainly fair to hold a seller responsible for what the seller knows, but I don't think it's fair to try to hold a seller responsible for someone saying that, well, you should have known that. Well, how should I have known that? I can tell you what I know, but I'm not sure, the should have known concept. So I don't think it's fair to try to charge someone saying it's something that they should have known when they didn't. So I'll talk to you about that now, how it comes into the revisions to the form. So I understand you've been given a sample of this, and I attended those subcommittee meetings of the Real Estate Commission. It was a very diligent committee with professional members and public members on that committee. And we literally, folks, read through every word of the form. out loud. I've done that with other form work, and I find even with other lawyers, and I find it really works. If you sit there as a group and actually read out loud every word, it might seem a little like first grade, but it actually works because it slows down your brain, it slows down your process to actually focus on the words and to think about it. Whereas if you just quickly say, does anybody have any questions on questions 1 through 7? Oh, no, we good to go. So we literally read through every word of it. I think it's improved. Is it perfect? No, by no means. It'll never be perfect, which is why it needs to be revised every now and then. We've even had some suggestions since it was approved by the commission, and since they haven't announced the effective date yet, we might be trying to get them to add one more note in order to satisfy another concern raised by a representative in our General Assembly. We'll see how that goes. So you have the revised form, and let me highlight some of the changes for you. Going back to that concept of what's this seller's responsibility as far as making that disclosure, material defects known at the time the property is offered for sale.
Keep going.
I can keep going. Okay, thank you. So focusing on that concept, and just to show you how input from members really matters, the subcommittee worked on putting in a lot of places to say, to the best of your knowledge, or known, and we had floated the form out there again for some further comments, and one broker came back on the commission and said, well, I showed this to somebody in my office, and they actually counted, and they told us how many times those words have been used. So what we did instead was had a statement added in the beginning block here with every area that's introducing a new subject or a new page, saying seller shall answer all the following questions based on seller's knowledge of the property. So we're trying to bring back to that knowledge concept. We're getting the seller to respond based on the seller's knowledge of the property, and trying to make it clear the seller's not required to do further investigation. They're basing it on their knowledge of the property. But that then more places were added saying, if yes, describe in the section 16 at the end, the blank lines to fill in more information or add in some additional pages. And also just clarified a lot of existing questions as well. So let me pause for a second and remind you about the use of this form is that it's supposed to be filled out by the seller prior to signing the listing with you and listing the property. And it's a seller disclosure form. It's not a broker disclosure form. So you might help I see Marty smiling there. Yeah. I'm sure she's been through with many sellers where they can ask you questions about what a question might mean. Like what's a tax ditch, So you can educate them as to what a tax ditch is and what an easement might be that goes along with that, but you're not answering that question. That's the seller's responsibility to answer the question. So, and yes, I mean, I've actually worked with a seller who it took her 2 weeks, working on the form and asking me questions and things like that. You can see she was doing a diligent job, but that's good. So yes, they're supposed to do it before listing with you, and then it's your duty to have that available to buyers and buyers agents who are interested in making an offer on the property. The buyer should actually read the form before making an offer. So when you're working as a buyer's agent, encourage the buyer to, take a half hour, sit down, actually read the whole form. And that way they're becoming a more educated buyer. They're thinking about additional things that they may want to negotiate for in the agreement of sale. So clarifying and looking at hitting some of the highlights here. So on the first section, we're talking about occupancy, just little wording changes there, nothing real significant. Then question 2 here about leases. Wes mentioned about a legislator who wanted some further disclosure in this area, and we think we had already actually addressed it. The commission subcommittee had already looked at these questions, but we clarified that if its property is subject to a current rental/lease agreement, that the seller agrees to provide a copy of that rental lease agreement to the buyer upon request. The subcommittee talked about well, should it maybe just be attached with every seller's disclosure form? Well, no, that wouldn't be so good because that is available through the MLS. Everybody could see that lease agreement. Maybe the landlord or the tenant don't want the whole world to be able to see their lease agreement. But if you have a serious buyer, someone really thinking about making an offer, here's the seller saying, okay, you're a serious buyer. Bing, here you go. I'll make the existing lease available to you. Same thing was added as far as clarifying about, is the property subject to a rental/lease management agreement? And then if yes, is the agreement binding upon the purchaser? So the potential purchaser will know it's subject to a management agreement, and I will or I will not be subject to that going forward. And again, the seller agrees to provide a copy of that to the buyer upon request. And then going on here, Roman numeral 2, deed restrictions, homeowners association, condominiums, and co-ops. And so in what's now question number 10, just rather than just using the word workforce, we added inclusionary housing. That's become more of a popular term within the field rather than just saying workforce housing. Somehow saying workforce housing has somehow gotten to some people a bad connotation. So use the more better term, more accurate term of inclusionary housing. Then in the area of questions 14, 15, clarified there as far as about fees that go along with the property, trying to make it clear to a buyer, are there additional fees, capital contribution fees, et cetera, that a new owner may have to pay as they're proceeding with settlement. And we had a good suggestion with question 14 from Attorney Billy Scott in Sussex, asking us to add, which the commission agreed to do, including but not limited to deferred water and sewer charges, because he alerted us several properties in Sussex County, they're seeing these deferred water and sewer charge agreements recorded as part of the development process, and wanted to make sure buyers know that that's something then going forward they have to pay for years to come. Question 16, there's a lot of good discussion about new or proposed changes by the HOA or Maintenance Association or Condominium Board, but clarified here, I'm going to go ahead and read it. Have you received written notice, written was added, written notice of any new or proposed or board discussions of increases in fees, dues, assessments, or capital contributions? So I think that's good clarifications for that question, emphasizing, have you received written notice? Not just that you were having a cup of tea with a neighbor and the neighbor said, well, I heard the board was talking about doing thus and such. Well, no, have you received written notice of some proposed change or board discussion? So if they sent out HOA minutes and in those minutes they said they were thinking about increasing fees and they were going to discuss that further at their next quarterly meeting or something, well, that would be written notice and the seller would need to disclose about that. Moving on to looking at question in the area of 24 about leasehold ground leases. So added ground leases to this, since many areas in Delaware have the ground leases, and specifying what's the current lease amount for that. And also then added a note that may be subject to change, and also asking when does that leasehold ground lease expire. As you know, we have several areas in Delaware where decades ago it was a very favorable ground lease entered into, and many of those are coming up now to expire, and the ground owner is either not renewing them or renewing them at a great increase in the price. I'm not being critical of the landlord for that, and that's the marketplace for those ground leases at the time, but the buyer should be made aware of that so they know they're going to be facing the potential, perhaps substantial increase coming up. Moving on to questions 30 and 31, new programs here. Did you participate in any mortgage / closing cost assistance program that needs to be paid back at the time of the transfer of the property? And 31, did you participate in any mortgage forbearance programs such as under the CARES Act from COVID-19? If you haven't run into it already, oh, sorry about that. Thank you, 32. I was looking at a red line here. Sorry about that. 32, 33, which I should pause it for a second and give Matt Lafferty kudos for helping out so much with the forms committee and being the one to handle all this stuff. Thank you, Matt. Fantastic job. We have no idea how he keeps up with our forms committee with all of what we're throwing around on the Zoom there. And Bruce Plummer being on the forms committee and always paying so much attention, Bruce, to all those details, which is fantastic. So I mean, the whole knowledge and experience base we have here in Delaware. And by the way, with that forms committee, every member is active in the marketplace. So we're not just having some ivory tower people on. They're in the trenches working every day in the marketplace. So very, very practical knowledge that is being worked on there. So sorry about the difficulty there I had on the question number. So that's, if you haven't run into it already, these mortgages recorded on the back end under the forbearance program are really coming to light now and causing problems for the sellers who don't realize that in that package of papers they signed for the forbearance program, they heard forgiveness rather than forbearance. And they didn't realize in that package they were signing when they were quarantined with COVID and whatnot, that actually was putting a mortgage on the end that needed to be paid when the property was sold off. Even if it didn't have additional interest added to it, it was a large principal chunk. And so we added a question about that to give the opportunity for the seller to say, well, I did sign up for something back then. And that's your opportunity to say, well, did you have the papers? Oh, well, no, they told me to send them back. I sent them back. Oh, well, all right, well, then you might help that seller. That seller is going to need to dig into that further and find out to be able to answer that question. And then that'll help you to help figure out, is this potentially then leading to what could be a short sale situation to work with. Question, what had been 32, we deleted, really modified that question significantly. This was too broad of a general catch-all program question that in the 2017 version basically said, is there anything else you should disclose to a potential buyer because it may materially adversely affect the property? Blah, blah, blah. The lawyers were having too much of a field day with that, quite frankly. It was getting into the area of should have known. Well, you should have known this. You should have realized that was a defect and you should have disclosed that. So that question was modified. Have you received formal notice of any changes that may materially or adversely affect the property? Example, zoning changes, road changes, proposed utility changes. So again, trying to make it more specific and based on any actual notice received, not just maybe a rumor they've heard. By the way, I should say with that, it's the buyer's responsibility as well. Take some responsibility for what they're doing and look into their questions about the property. And so additional link was added on the front as far as a link to FEMA and a link to further link to DENREC. So with increasing concerns about flooding and whatnot, having the link to FEMA, it takes you right to the page that somebody can put in their address and see if they're in a special flood hazard area. And think further then perhaps about obtaining flood insurance. The sidewalk note that was mentioned, if you look in the area of question, is it 49 now, somewhere around that? So a note added, note to buyer, please check HOA local requirements concerning responsibility for sidewalk installation, replacement, repair, and snow removal. Make sure your seller doesn't guess about this. So they're not having the seller to have to add what they know about it. And don't you guess either. You never should do that. And if you do that, you probably have one foot in the courtroom door. So the buyer should be checking further about that. If you're listing and the seller's asking you to help look into that further, Well, it's really their responsibility if they feel they need to, but it's the buyer's responsibility if they have more question about that. This is a difficult area because, for example, in the city of Wilmington, there's been litigation about that. I think some of that is still actually pending as to sidewalks within the right of way, the city's responsibility, and yet the homeowner, if they contact, well, yeah, we can put you on a list, and that list, we might get to it in some years. So effectively, it ends up that the homeowner ends up working on repairing the sidewalk, even though it might not be their legal responsibility. So it's different in different jurisdictions. And so, but there was a note there put on that to ask about that. Roman numeral 5, rather than saying environmental hazards, it's now environmental concerns, a little bit broader. And we realized every question in here wasn't necessarily about something that could be a hazard. It could be a concern, but not an environmental hazard. So that's that clarification there. And we deleted the question that was, again, too general about, is there currently mold in the property? That was added at a time when kind of mold was just becoming a thing, if you will, and more of our consciousness in the real estate field. And we realize now that we're breathing mold spores right now. And it's just that it's everywhere. So that was too broad a question. So that was reworded to, has the property ever been tested for mold? If yes, provide a copy of the test results. Then moving on here about land and boundaries, the question that deals with the surveys, around this question 65, have you ever had the property surveyed, rather than questioning, has the property ever been surveyed? So have you had the property, meaning the seller, have you had the property surveyed? It was too broad a question, because somebody might think, if somebody says no on that, they might think, oh, well, it's never been surveyed in the entire history of ownership of the property. So it's focusing just on the seller's time of ownership there. Some things were just moved around on the form. So questions about insulation and whatnot, don't be concerned if it used to be in one part of the form and now is another. And some things were just moved around to make things a little more just logical. Then moving on to the area of talking about the termites, et cetera, that heading was changed to be termites, insects, and wildlife. And had a lot of good discussion in this area. Draw your attention to question, I think it's 84. Are there now, or have there ever been any bat colonies on the property? So trying to alert buyers if it's that situation, because they can be a little tricky to deal with, and only certain times of the year that you might be able to deal with that bat colony situation. Then a lot of clarification of wording on the type of plumbing and things like that. I'm going to give Bruce and Tom a chance to comment a little bit if they want. Moving on to talking about the electrical system and so I'm around question 138, adding the opportunity for the seller to put down the name of the solar company. I'm sure many of you have struggled with the solar systems, and so added to say the name of the solar company, and if it's leased, what's the term of that agreement, and then a note added to the buyer, note to buyer, transfer of lease is subject to approval by, and the buyer must register with the Public Service Commission. So putting information in there to try to get the buyer working on their requirements early, so it's not something that can possibly delay settlement. Some of the solar companies, as you know, are difficult to deal with as far as trying to just plain old get somebody to answer an email or a telephone to provide the paperwork for what you need to do for the transfer and perhaps the termination of the one UCC financing statement and recording another one. If you go to the area of the form that has the check off the boxes for things being in working order or not, over on the right-hand column of that, questions were added for smart devices. So are there electronic/smart door locks, smart cameras /doorbell, smart thermostat? Moving down in that column, some question added about, is there a backup generator? So being aware that more properties have those additional amenities, gives a chance to help out with that. And then on the additional information, some important wording clarification there. This is the additional, write in the information or provide additional sheets. Provide, rather than say detailed explanation, provide an explanation of your recollection using common language. So we're saying to the seller, tell us what you know. We don't need all the technical language for it unless you happen to know that. If you have reports, yes, add it. But we're going based on the seller's recollection and not requiring them to go do a whole bunch of detailed research on that. But that brings me back to the point that it's also the buyer's responsibility for taking responsibility for the transaction. If they have questions about things, asking the seller for further information, negotiating for things perhaps on their offer as to some defects they may want the seller to be obligated to repair, rather than just taking a question on whether it would come up on the home inspection. I think you know this, the buyer could see a defect disclosed on the seller's disclosure and go ahead and negotiate as part of their offer for the seller to fix that, at the seller's expense prior to settlement. Then it's not going to be a question as to whether it pops up on a home inspection. If the seller agrees to that in the agreement of sale, then the seller is agreeing to go ahead and fix that. I'll give Bruce and Tom here, as far as members of the Forms Committee, if you want to go ahead and make any further comments. Any other Forms Committee members here? Where's Bobby? Oh, darn, just missed Bobby. Okay, so yes, and Bobby on the Forms Committee as well, but I don't know if either of you want to.
I'm going to defer to all people in the room to really review this carefully, and then we're going to be able to answer any questions on the 20th or the 22nd, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah, that'll be much more detailed. You hit the hot spots now.
Okay.
I will point out that when you get to this box here, we have also eliminated a group of boxes underneath. All those questions have been blended into the entire document.
Right, so it's just moved to a different place in the form. Thank you, Tom. Bruce, okay, so Bruce and Tom and Bobby, they'll all be part of the event on the 22nd. So again, just publicly want to thank the Delaware Real Estate Commission for asking DAR for input to the process. We value our relationship very much with the Real Estate Commission and appreciate any opportunity they give us to give our input to try to make everything better for all the citizens of Delaware. And wasn't it amazing having Eugene here, talking about how great it is to have people knowledgeable in the housing field to be the head of the Delaware State Housing Authority. We're so lucky in Delaware that we can all work together and find good solutions for everyone in Delaware, which up to 1 million people now. So, yes. Okay, yes. So as you know, there are other disclosure forms for new construction and also for vacant land that's being marketed for residential property. And hold on. Okay, so the Real Estate Commission Subcommittee will be working on revisions, similar revisions to those forms as well. Okay, and Scott hasn't quite given me the yank yet. So question?
30 seconds.
30 seconds. Go ahead, Maya.
Is it too late? I know this box is incredible. Instead of having two boxes, XBI, A and B. Why wasn't this a list of, alphabetical?
Too late. But we'll put it in the comment box for next time, which by the way, every time the forms change, I start another folder on my computer of suggestions for revisions. And I always travel and teach with my pad to write down other suggestions. So
one other note real quick. Use this as a sample, obviously, as it says. But if you have notes and questions, please bring them to the May 22nd meeting. Please use this as a tool to get ready to teach your agents. This is not the final form, but things like what Mia just mentioned, that won't happen. But
sorry,
there may be another note that goes from the commission.
Because I did ask that.
yes.
How long do you think it'll be out?
We're hoping that they'll make the final approval at the Commission May meeting next Thursday and pass a motion as to the effective date, which hopefully is going to be June 1st or July 1st for new listings. We hope they'll pass it that you don't have to go back retroactively and try to get sellers of existing listings to fill it out. So does that answer your question? Okay. All right. Yes, Bob.
Hey, Chief.
Go ahead.
First one is,
Is there any chance that DREC is going to be able or will be able to give final approval of license renewal to the brokers versus the agents being to self-certify? Because agents can self-certify at 2 o'clock in the morning and a broker has no idea whether or not. Now, I don't know how a broker can be held responsible as long as you're informing your agents that they've got to do it. After the fact, if they do it, you have no control of it.
Right. So that was the first question, was any chance the commission could have it be that basically a licensee couldn't renew without the brokers, being involved with that process and approval, rather than them being able to do it at 2 a.m. on the DAR Pro system without the broker even knowing they're reviewed. The Real Estate Commission is aware of the limitations of the DAR Pro system. Real estate commissioners themselves have experienced it and expressed concerns to the computer technology folks at the state about the limitations of the DAR Pro system. And
I don't think self-certification works for us as brokers. I think
right.
The broker should have some sort of say whether or not the
licensee renews,
salesperson is eligible to renew.
Right.
I will second that.
Yeah. I think everyone, yes.
That was my first question. Now,
Yeah.
the question about forms are, my forms is were the boxes changed on the agreement of sale to meet the change on the seller disclosure?
Not yet, but we always try to make our boxes consistent with the Real Estate Commission boxes. So that'll be.
And the other thing that I had to ask was lease ground. I was actually approached by 2 legislators last Saturday at the GOP convention, and they were having some issues. I guess people were selling lease ground properties without having without it being disclosed. Not us, probably not realtors, but people, private sales, without explaining that there's a transfer fee, titling fee due to the Department of Motor Vehicles. So that transfer is happening and it's not being disclosed. There are people who are selling out. Individuals are selling their homes and they're not disclosing that. So you got to come up with 4% after the fact. So that's not necessarily us. We have, those of you who sell real estate or sell properties on lease ground, you have a disclosure. We use a disclosure. So it may
I'm
be
getting pretty anxious right here. Can you answer that question?
This form doesn't focus on the manufactured home, mobile home transfer. So, but write that down and keep that in mind for some future way to make disclosure on it.
Legislature.
So my pleasure being here with you today. And
Andy.
the only thing I can control is my attitude.
Yeah.
You did a great job. So thank you, everyone. Thanks, Andy, for that really great update. Thank you to the Forms Committee for doing the work that you did, working alongside of the Real Estate Commission to get the seller's disclosure updated. And Bob, thanks for the comment that you just made too about the responsibility of brokers to ensure that their agents have met the CE requirement before renewing their license. And so that sort of falls under one of our initiatives this year is the rules and regs that were again written for 20 years ago, 30 years ago, back when we used to have to sign off on everything and then upload a form. And that's not practical anymore. So that's one of the things that this task force is working on and basically petitioning the commission to either fix the system or take away the responsibility of the broker, one or the other. Yeah. So thank you everybody for being here. I hope that you found this to be really, really helpful. Watch for maybe a survey to come out afterwards. Just what kind of information you're looking for in these summits. What's going to help you in your responsibility with your offices and supervising your agents. And with that, we really hope that you're going to stay for lunch. We have lunch set up all back here. I see soup. It looks like sandwiches and salad. So yeah, please grab lunch and have a little bit more networking time. And then whenever you have to peel out, go ahead and do so. So thank you for being here today.
Thank you.